Chapter 381, Three Methods 5. Those two they are engaged. Those two they are engaged. Pardon. I let my jaw drop at that huge bombshell and slowly shifted my head over to Sing-Shong. He blushed his cheeks a little when our gazes met, and I saw him look away soon after. Yu Yonghyuk and Han Soo-yong, the first prince of the Kaiksanix archipelago, and the esteemed daughter of an earl. Sure, there was quite a difference in height to overcome, but when looking at them some more, they did seem well suited to each other. Their personalities were a bad matchup, but then again, they had a surprising amount of similarities too. My mischievous streak reared its head and I raised my voice. Oyai, you two kind of resemble a black bear and a newborn chick. Almost at the same time, gigantic murderous intent flew in my direction. I'll kill you. One more word, and I'll tear your mouth wide open. Cold sweat trickled down my backside. Jiang Huiwan whispered in my ear, maybe it's better not to provoke them. I guess so. By the way, didn't something happen on your side as well, Huiwan SSI? Excuse me. I replied Jiang Huiwan's confusion with a grin and quickly got in between Yu Yonghyuk and Han Soo-yong. Their facial expressions were frozen stiff, as if they were unhappy about my joke earlier. Han Soo-yong, your role is the most important one. You know that, right? You gotta do your part properly so that. She didn't answer back. Han Soo-yong. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Strange sparks suddenly danced around her figure. I instantly figured out what happened. Yuri the Aristotle's ego was pushing aside Han Soo-yong's. I'll never let you go. Yuri was crying out, tears streaming out of her eyes. Sooner or later, you'll regret leaving this place. All the fables you possess will wither away like ruins with no one visiting them, and no one will remember them anymore. And in the end, they won't even be able to stay frozen in this island and vanish from this world. I looked back at her and made my reply, that could happen. What was that? Yuri sounded dumbfounded. I quietly observed her for a moment. Yuri the Aristotle, this scenario's original heroine. If the scenario unfolded as it should have, then by this time, she'd probably have become the king's lover after experiencing a regular life of growing up as someone's daughter. If you remain in this world, you'll all be safe. I could sympathize with her, who had no choice but to say something like that, but at the same time, I could not claim to sympathize with her point of view, because we weren't living in the same fable. In a way, you were simply reading the stories, no matter how many you had read so far. Perhaps that was why all I could do for now was not to arrogantly convince her, but to simply imagine. What if Han Soo-yong was me? What would she have said right about now? I'll ask the king of reincarnators for a favor. Let us remain in this place together, and entrust yourselves to the samsara's wall. When you do ... Then, we'd live on while carrying out the exact same scenario every single time. What? I slowly blinked my eyes and asked her, Yuri the Aristotle, how did it feel when you became the queen for the first time ever? Her irises quaked intensely just then. The Isle of Reincarnators was basically a museum of ancient fables that had disappeared in the back alleys of the changing era. The foundation of this world was one of the third generation's medieval-themed fantasy settings. Yuri the Aristotle would have lived the same life over and over again, while repeating the actions and speeches as set out by the great fable. Han Soo-yong knew this, and she probably wanted to show her host the possibility of new stories. Tell her that we were not slaves ruled by the fables. Most likely, Yuri had realized it by now, because Han Soo-yong was an excellent writer after all. You like Han Soo-yong, yes? If you do, please believe in her. She will definitely not abandon you. Yuri the Aristotle looked at me for a little while before forming a complicated expression. Her presence vanished afterwards. A round of lightly dancing sparks later, Han Soo-yong's white irises reverted back to their normal state. She staggered a little bit as if she was struck by a dizzy spell. She then looked at me as if impressed by my actions and spoke. Kim Dak-ya, not too shabby, eh? I learned from you. Yuri might really want to marry you at this rate. Stop with your nonsense and get ready. We're about to make our entrance. We pushed the doors to the audience chamber wide open, and almost immediately, threatening air poured down on us from either sides of the chamber itself. At the same time, Jiang Huiwen stood next to me and spoke. I'm sorry about that time, Dakya SSI. I didn't have to ask her to know what she was apologizing for. In return, I'll protect you properly this time. I trust you. When Yi Hyunseong and Jiang Huiwen stood on my sides, the threatening air pouring down on me softened by a good deal. I felt reassured with the greatest sword and shield gathered in one place like this. I scanned the crowd of people lining up on either side of the audience chamber. On one side, representatives from the revolutionaries, and on the other, nobles and their flag-bearers. We walked past them and headed straight towards the throne. But just as we arrived before it, someone among the gathered crowd loudly shouted at us. Who is the king? Who was the king? They were here to get the answer to that burning question. Is it like what the rumor said, and the dark magician is the new queen? Show us the legitimate king. Oh dear princes, tell us the truth. The moment I saw their faces, a realization dawned on me. None of these people were here on their own volition. It was this world's fable that had summoned them here. Great fable, Kaixenix archipelago, has bared its animosity. Yu Yonghyuk and I looked at Han Suyong simultaneously. She nodded her head and took a step forward. I am the new ruler of the Kaixenix archipelago. The crowd immediately began protesting. You dare? Where is the rightful heir of the Kaixenix line? Kill that wench. Han Suyong didn't panic and unsheathed the sword. And this sword is the proof of my kingship. Unbreakable faith emitted blindingly pure white light. Several of the crowd recognized the weapon and went down on their knees, but still, the majority were shooting the glares of distrust in our direction. It was here that Yu Yonghyuk stepped forward. She is indeed the archipelago's new ruler. The expressions of fluster appeared on the faces of First Prince's supporters after he made that declaration. Vigorous opposition quickly rose up from the revolutionaries. But how can that be? Something like this has never happened before. There's a first time for everything. Our family cannot accept this result. And at last, folks breaking character to voice their opinions made their appearance too. Your choice does not align with our worldview. Our worldview simply wants. I address them with these words. Your worldview, what could that possibly be? The crowd shut their mouths. Without saying anything else, I shifted my gaze above to the message floating in the air. Genre of the applicable scenario is Kim Dakya's company. There was no such genre called Kim Dakya's company in the world. However, there being none didn't mean a story couldn't be told either. Kim Dakya's company isn't like any other genre, Yu Yonghyuk spoke up again. Kim Dakya's company is simply Kim Dakya's company. Han Suyong raised unbreakable faith up high before stabbing it deeply into the floor. Just like how Kaixenix archipelago is simply the Kaixenix archipelago. Special effect of the star relic, unbreakable faith, has activated. This sword utilized ether of 3 differing attributes. Ether attribute is transforming into fire. Pure white petals of flame rose up from the blade held tight in Han Suyong's hand. I placed my own on the hilt of the sword. Ether attribute darkness has activated in tandem. And Yu Yonghyuk's hand was placed on top of ours. Ether attribute divinity has activated in tandem. The 3 attributes of unbreakable faith, fire, darkness, and light, began burning up at the same time. The archipelago's citizens had never witnessed such a miracle before, and they stared at us in wonder. Han Suyong addressed them. The king, if you want to become one, come here and give it a shot. That is, if you're confident of grasping this sword. No one tried to come closer. Everyone gathered here knew the truth already, that the moment their hands touched that brilliant light, their bodies would crumble away like fine dust. Even though the overwhelmed crowd trembled in fear, some still managed to ask us questions. All of you, why are you doing this? What are you planning to do to this archipelago? This was an unprecedented development, and they had grown fearful of this world's end. The one who replied to them was Yu Young-hyuk. We didn't come here to occupy the measly little Kaiksenix archipelago. But we came here to liberate you all. I quickly followed that up, and several people began muttering among themselves. You already know what they mean, do you? Neither Han Soo-young, Yu Young-hyuk, nor I said those words. We also can't repeat the exact same scenario over and over again. No, it was Yuri the Aristal who had raised her voice. Instead, she had finally realized what the conclusion to this scenario we've been wishing for was. I planned a journey with these people. At Yuri's words, the crowd formed utterly stunned expressions. However, it wasn't just her who had made up their minds. I felt my heart beat powerfully all of a sudden, and someone began speaking through my lips next. If she's willing to do so, then I shall do the same. These words belonged to my host, fourth Prince Ricardo. Soon afterwards, another voice came out from Yu Young-hyuk as well. I can't let my feeble brother go all by himself. That was from the first Prince Schweiken. After him, two more voices came from Yehyun-seong and Jiang Huiwon's position. My sword will accompany you wherever you go, Your Highness. I'll protect you, Your Majesty. Both Bilston Framer and Erich Stryker, too. It wasn't just Yuri who had been watching our tailies until now. Indeed, the original protagonists of this world also had been watching us. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, is roaring out loudly. Great Fable, Demon World Spring, is looking at this world. We will participate in the Great War of Saints and Demons. Everyone gathered here was looking at Kim Dokya's company. As the company's head representative, I addressed them once more. And we will liberate every person on this island from reincarnation. One by one, the crowd began kneeling down. These people, having been playthings of the Great Fables scenario for such a long time, were looking at us now. Let's all go together. The world was rocked by an intense vibration as soon as those words came to an end. That was the sound of a world crumbling down. And Great Fable, Kaiksenix Archipelago, is crying out. It was also the sound of a great fable collapsing on itself. Great Fable, Kaiksenix Archipelago, is activating its authority to control every citizen in the archipelago. The giant story exhausted its own existence to continue its life. Unfortunately, what made a great fable a fable was every reincarnator in the archipelago, Kaiksenix, is resisting against the great fable's control. None other than the people in it. Worldview has accepted your reply. You have satisfied the scenario clear condition. Sub-scenario, genre selection has concluded. Scenario clear reward is being calculated. The space-time of the applicable scenario's location is synchronizing with that of the Great War of Saints and Demons. Portal to the Great War of Saints and Demons has been generated. An enormous portal emitting blinding rays of light was generated in midair. It was the doorway leading up to the Great War. I'll go first. Yu Young-hyuk was the first to walk inside. Other reincarnators, finished making up their minds, followed after him and entered the portal's innards. Someone even asked me this. Do you believe we can really do this? I do not know. I can only pray that you can. How honest. The reincarnator smiled awkwardly and stepped across the portal. The waves of people flooded out of here. Han Soo-young and I stayed back at the end of the queue and watched them leave. She opened her lips to speak. You should go ahead first. Most likely, she still had fond memories of this place. I figured that it'd not be such a bad idea to let her have some alone time to reminisce a bit. But just before I could step inside the portal, she grabbed me. Hey Kim Dokya. It seemed that she wanted to ask me something. I quietly stared at her for a bit, and eventually she grandly sighed and waved her hand about. Forget it, it's nothing. What's the matter? I said, it's nothing to worry about. She tried to avoid my gaze while grumbling loudly. I got worried somewhat, and pulled my leg out of the portal with a sigh. You can just tell me. We went our separate ways in a similarly meaningful manner the last time, and that's what's making me worried here. It's nothing major. Well, in that case, you can tell me no problem, right? Aren't you a persistent one? Han Soo-young sighed grandly once more and opened her lips. In the future, her gaze fixed to the floor slowly rose up as her words continued on. In the future, when all the scenarios have ended, I may want to get back to writing novels again. It was the first time she looked at me with such serious eyes, and that took me by surprise just a little. Meanwhile, she carried on. When that happens, read my novel, okay? Your novel? She nodded her head. I'm giving you the opportunity to become its very first reader. I'm not such a good reader, though. Don't be an ass and just read it when I tell you to. Fine, fine, I'll definitely read it. I replied good-naturedly. Well, it'd not be a problem to read her novel. I mean, I liked reading novels to begin with. However, she must have found my response out of her expectation because she asked me back to confirm it. For real? Yeah, for real. She stared at me with disbelieving eyes. But it might be over 3,000 chapters. That's probably right up my alley then. It might be boring too. It's you writing it, so that's not possible, you know. Han Soo-young's eyes grew wider after hearing my reply. I felt somewhat embarrassed at myself, so I quickly said something else. What genre will it be? I'll cross that bridge when I get there. How about romance? How can I milk romance for 3,000 chapters? We shared such light-hearted banter while shifting our gazes back to the portal. That's where Yi Hyun-seong and Jeong Hui-won walking together could be seen. I sensed this awkwardness in the air between them, and it was nice to see that. Well, those two might need 3,000 chapters, and then some. It was then, nice-sounding messages resounded out from the sky. Restriction on indirect messaging has been lifted. Constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is cheering out in happiness. Constellation, abyssal dark flame dragon, is enjoying the warm atmosphere. Constellation, demon-like judge of flame, is freaking out. It seemed that, with the conclusion of the scenario, the channel had been reopened again. Constellation, demon-like judge of flame, is shielding her incarnation. Constellation, demon-like judge of flame, is being vigilant of Constellation, master of steel. Constellation, master of steel, is feeling wronged. Han Soo-young smirked and muttered to herself, romance, is it? She and I stepped across the portal together. I could see the constellations waiting for our arrival in the distance. You've come, Kim Dokya's company. Finally, we reached the opening stages of the Great War of Saints and Demons. Chapter 382, The Hottest Place in Hell 1. Shin Yu-seung opened her eyes because of the bright spotlight lights that danced in the air. One of the flying drones circled around her head once, before disappearing into the distant black sky. Urgh, my head. Under the head-spinning dizzy spell, she staggered unsteadily back to her feet. The only things she could see around her were scrap metal and rubbish. She couldn't see any of the companions she was with. Could she have landed in this place all alone? Shin Yu-seung. A boy pushed his head out from among the scrap metal, like some kind of a baby octopus. Yi Gil-yong. Feeling happy now, she shifted her gaze over there. But then, the figure of woman leapt out from the piles of rubbish while stepping on the boy's head. Get out of the way, you stink, you know. Jai-hai Unni. She figured out who came along with her. Her companions brushed away all the trash stuck on their bodies and stood upright. What's this? Is it just us? I think so. Heh, it's the reformation of Busan Alliance. Jai-hai spoke with a slightly excited tone of voice, but Shin Yu-seung was different. Why did it have to be Jai-hai and Gil-yong? She alternated her gaze between her two companions and made a resolution in her mind. I'm the only adult here, so I gotta stay sharp. Whether they knew her thoughts or not, Jai-hai and Gil-yong continued their glaring contest, only to suddenly delve straight into deciding the pecking order. Hey kids, We should choose the leader first, like how we've done so far, right? Nuna, you were the leader back in Busan Alliance, so it's my turn now. Hey, you. You weren't even born yet when I got admitted to the kindergarten, you know. What's that got to do with anything? SHH, both of you keep quiet. The moment Shin Yuseung's voice was heard, all three of them pressed themselves tightly against a nearby wall in unison. A millisecond later, a drone flying around like some sort of an insect shone a spotlight on the alleyway they were standing in just now. Lying. The drone hovered in position for a little while, and eventually it disappeared beyond the alleyway, its sensors tilting this way and that. Yijai asked in a tense voice, "Hey, wasn't that a drone?" It was right then. The system messages could be heard from the sky. Someone has interfered with the scenario system. Due to the unprecedented power, you have been forcibly summoned to the main island. Next City. Next City is currently cut off from the space-time of the conflict region of the Great War of Saints and Demons. You can advance to the Great War of Saints and Demons once you solve the sub-scenario of the applicable location. Next City, Gilyong's eyes began sparkling. Let's go and take a look. Stop being childish, Yi Gilyong. This isn't a game. Despite Shin Yuseung's warning, the boy broke into a sprint. Fortunately, there was no drone nearby, and the spot they were hiding in was situated in a surprisingly high altitude. Wow, this! They were treated to a magnificent sight where the whole city could be seen in one take. Bright neon signs illuminating the night streets, androids emitting blue light beams from their heads, roaming around said streets as if putting on a protest march. They could immediately tell what the worldview here was from this spectacle. Yi Gilyong spoke confidently. I'm gonna get super strong in this place and surprise Dakya Hyung later. He'll get even more surprised if you get killed here instead. Nuna, why do you hate me so much? Disregarding the bickering duo, for now, Shin Yuseung carefully observed the panoramic view of the city below. If one were to discount the slight disturbance created by the protest, it looked as if the city was functioning systematically according to a set of strict rules. This was a sci-fi worldview retaining a level of social order previously unheard of. She remembered hearing that the Isle of Reincarnators were graves of fatting fables. If so, why did a world like this one meet its doom? In the meantime, Yijai and Gilyong were excitedly yapping away, without any care given for Shin Yuseung's concerns. Will they have stuff like a lightsaber here? What a helpless sword otaku. Shut up. Wait, I think they are really equipped with something like lightsabers. Really, where? They could see the guards patrolling the city sauntering closer to their location. Maybe because of the worldview's effects, information windows of the guards floated up in front of their eyes after they took a closer look. LV-12 guard-type android. The applicable unit is around 4 times stronger than you. Yijai freaked out and muttered out loudly, "What the hell, why are they so strong? I think it's us who got weak." For sure, the density of the magical energy in the surroundings had decreased noticeably ever since they arrived in this worldview. Your main stats have been reverted back to their initial values in the applicable worldview. This worldview is subjected to the corrective effect of level system. God damn it, they are coming this way. When did they realize it? Guards were suddenly rushing towards the group's position. They looked up at the sky only to discover several drones circling above their heads. Reaction to Fable energy detected. Reaction to Fable energy detected. Along with the loud warning sounds, the guards increased their speed by engaging the boosters mounted on their backs and pounced on the group in a row. Yijai, Shin Yuseung, and Gilyong hurriedly pulled out their individual weapons. Screw it, there aren't even any bugs here. Hey, Shin Yuseung, can you summon the Chimera Dragon? The cooldown time isn't over yet. Your current level is 1. Earn experience points by hunting low-level enemies. With a deeply agonized look on her face, Yijai unsheathed her longsword. She was the only one specialized in close-quarter battles among her group. Quickly activating demon slaying and ghost walk, she faced off against a guard in order to protect the kids, just as the android's lightsaber collided with her longsword. Jia. The lightsaber simply let her blade slide by and proceeded to cut her forearm. Alec. Android Yijai has been seriously injured. Please administer Fable energy to preserve your life. She backed away quickly, but it was already too late by then. Get out of the way. Shin Yuseung pushed Yijai aside and stepped forward. The latter's complexion paled instantly and cried out towards the former. Gilyong stretched his arms out too. Unfortunately, the lightsaber was already descending towards the crown of her head. Ajasi. At that moment the girl looked back on her short life. She felt this sense of unfairness, knowing that it'd be over in a place like this. Yet, at the same time, there was also a sense of satisfaction too, knowing that her choice was correct. Shin Yuseung thought that this was the final moments befitting the incarnation of the Demon King of Salvation. And then, in the next second, the applicable attack does not work on you. Along with the sparks going tsu-cha-cha-chut, the guard's lightsaber stopped millimeters away from her nose as if blocked by a formless wall. And new messages popped up in the air one after the other. Error has occurred in the scenario system. Great Fable, Next City, is expressing its puzzlement over the existence of incarnation, Shin Yuseung. It was the exact same story for Yi Gilyong as well. The lightsabers attacking the kids were all being powered down simultaneously. The boy dazedly looked up at the air and muttered softly to himself. What's going on? He could see letters written in the faint gray font on the top right-hand corner of his vision. Current scenario's age restriction is 18+. Due to the applicable worldview's consideration, murderous actions aimed at children teenage units are prohibited. Shin Yuseung and Yi Gilyong exchanged glances. Isn't this like huge? It was unknown how they ended up getting summoned here. However, if it was this sort of a worldview then. Gilyong formed a sneaky grin aimed at Yijai and her wide-open jaw behind him. Nuna, get ready for a free bus ride. While watching the boy shove his short sword into the guard's upper thigh area, Shin Yuseung began thinking to herself. Maybe remaining as a kid for a bit longer is. She didn't know what was waiting for her at the end of this scenario. However, she was sure of one thing at the end of this scenario: they should be strong enough to utterly stun Kim Dokya. I was left utterly stunned by the constellations waiting for me on the other side of the portal. Even at a quick glance, it was well more than one or two here. Could it be that they knew we were coming? Dokya SSI. Yehyunseong's voice sounded tense and I nodded my head at him. Yu Yonghyuk, Han Soo-young, Yehyunseong and Jiang Hui-won. Including me, the five of us gathered in one spot like a constellation in the night sky. Soon, though, scenario messages floated up in the air. Main scenario has been updated. You and your nebula have entered the neutral zone of Great War of Saints and Demons. You can select either camp of Great War of Saints and Demons. Right after those alerts, a notice message dyed the sky in rainbow colors next. Nebula Kim Dokya Company has entered the Great War of Saints and Demons. Without a doubt, Dokibus must have been behind that. We had just got here, yet they were advertising it all over the place already. Many constellations have noticed your presence. Some nebulas are keeping an eye on your group's next move. It wasn't an ideal situation, but naught we could do about it, as it was spilt milk. I met the gazes of the constellations looking at us from the other side. They were emitting pretty hefty statuses, too. I even spotted a familiar constellation among them. Your late descendant. A man with a dignified smile was looking in our direction. I called out to him in happiness. Goryeo's first sword. He was none other than Chiak Junjeong, the one we had to say goodbye to during the Middle Island scenario. As expected of a constellation who had reached the Fable grade, it seemed that he advanced to the main island without any issues. You must have completed quite a substantial scenario. You've gained more companions. His gaze was now studying the reincarnators emerging from the portal alongside us. They were people from Kaiksenix archipelago, entering the main island with me. They are folks who will participate in the great war of saints and demons with us. Chiak Junjeong nodded his head. Higher number of combat forces can certainly help. More importantly, however, something seems to have changed with you, descendant. He scanned me from top to bottom, as if he was searching for something. I can sense this vague depth to your group's fable. Is that so? Chiak Junjeong's gaze left me and headed towards Han Su-yong. She met his stare with a pair of impetuous eyes that said, "What are you looking at?" A strange light flickered within the former's eyes. I see. I abruptly recalled what the guardian of Mandala told me. Oh dear Bodhisattva, please try to endure time itself. Our nebula's fables had experienced an unknown change after clearing the Kaiksenix archipelago. The time Yi Hyun-seong, Jiang Hui-1 and especially Han Su-yong spent in Kaiksenix was definitely not in vain. Everything that happened was recorded as fables, and they would raise our statuses in turn. It might have been due to what Chiak Junjeong said, but well, I could sense constellations spying on us from behind, staring far more openly than before. Constellation, expert at playing both sides, is getting interested in you. Constellation, king of archers, is observing you in great interest. Constellation, 3 mouths but only 1 head, is sneering at the reincarnators from Kaiksenix archipelago. Reincarnators from the archipelago retreated from the Feast of Statuses. Now that they have emerged outside the Kaiksenix archipelago, they were no longer protected by their world view. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is growling. It was Han Su-yong who stepped forward as if to shield these reincarnators. The atmosphere wiggled, and the aura of the black flame dragon manifested itself behind her. The folks from Kaiksenix bowed their heads to pay their respect to her then. Indeed, that must be what they refer to as the kingly air. Unfortunately, some constellations didn't seem to like her display. It didn't take long for their aura to become threatening. Kugugugugu. An incarnation from a small nebula dares to. Feeling a bit annoyed now, I decided that I should stop the current flow right about here. Great fable, torch that swallowed the myth, is glaring at the constellations. The activation of the great fable managed to startle the constellations, and they took several steps back. I didn't miss that opportunity and asked Chiak Junjeong a question. Enough about that. Why have you been waiting for us? He formed a slightly troubled expression. The light in his eyes flickered as he tried to decide whether it'd be okay to say it or not. I could think up a couple of hypotheses just then and chose to test one of them out. I know that this is the neutral zone. Have you decided on which camp of the Great War to join yet? No, not yet. I see, he still hadn't chosen his side. Chiak Junjeong continued on. As you may well know, good and evil of the constellations aren't the same with that of the mortals. If I'm allowed to be honest, then I do not wish to be a part of either camp. Chiak Junjeong, starting as a mortal and reaching the ranks of constellation through his own power only, like me, wouldn't have agreed to the concept of good and evil as claimed by the archangels and demon kings. That was why I could sympathize with his dilemma. However, that story would always be his to mull over, no one else. I glanced at the constellations behind him and asked, "They haven't chosen their sides, I presume?" Chiak Junjeong nodded his head. Behind him, scattered groups of constellations could be seen loitering around tents set up here and there on a huge open plain. What is the current war situation like? From what I was able to find, faint, true voices could be heard coming from them. I smirked inwardly. In all honesty, it was easy to see what they were thinking of by not having chosen a camp yet. Constellations in the neutral zone were planning to stay back and observe the proceedings, and then join the side with the advantageous position and enter the Great War. Yu Yonghyuk and Han Suyong engaged midday tryst at the same time to talk to me. I can tell what the current situation is like. These bastards, they are going for that, right? I nodded my head. The stronger the neutral camp that hadn't chosen a side grew in power, the potential benefits to be gained when it did choose would be even greater. Constellation, prisoner of the golden headband, is looking down on the constellations of the neutral zone. Constellation, Hell's scribe, is letting others know that the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who maintain neutrality in times of moral crisis. Didn't matter whether it was good or evil, they were thinking of selling their influence to the highest bidder out there. Han Soo-young broke out in a smirk. Their aim is so easy to see through. It was right about then that Chiak Jun-jeong ended his deliberation and opened his lips. There is someone who wishes to meet you. Who is it? A high-ranking constellation from the nebula, Hongik. Thought as much. It seemed that Chiak Jun-jeong was here to win us over. I hid this faint sense of disappointment and asked him again. But didn't you tell me that high-ranking constellations of Hongik have all disappeared? Indeed, I heard something like that a long time ago. Once, at the Constellation Banquet, and when facing Founder's mother back inside the Dark Castle. We did not disappear, because there is one right in front of you. It was a true voice containing aloof, proud status. The ranks of the constellation parted, and a Taoist hermit holding a pure white folded fan was walking towards us. From each of his steps, I felt the power of vigorous winds. Hey, I think I know who this is. Kneel and pay your respects, O descendants of the peninsula. Chapter 383, The Hottest Place in Hell 2. This guy just popped out of nowhere and demands us to kneel down. Han Soo-young next to me carried a dumbfounded expression, while Yu Young-hyuk was already reaching towards his sword. Chiak Jun-jeong was massaging his forehead. It seemed that he expected a situation like this already. My apologies, descendant. I tried to talk him out of it, but I wasn't successful. True, he'd not enjoy situations like this, but he owed Hongik a lot, so he probably couldn't say no to them asking him to organize this meeting. I shall leave it to your decision. I nodded my head and looked at the Taoist hermit. Constellation, ruling over the peninsula's winds, has revealed his modifier. Constellation, heavenly wind god, is now looking at you. The heavenly wind god, the constellation who founded Hongik alongside the heavenly king. His real name was Pungbik, although most of us simply knew him as the god of wind. TL, one of the three gods ministers that served Hwanung the heavenly king, father of the ancient Korea's founder, Dangun. Wind god, god of wind switcheroo isn't a typo, though the first one's from the raw, while the second one is the official name of the god. Kugagagugu. The status of the constellation who had finally revealed his modifier caused strong gusts of wind that resembled the flapping wings of a giant phoenix to sweep past the surroundings. And then, all ambient noises disappeared. The reincarnators outside the wind wall were shouting something in my direction, but I couldn't hear them. Pungbik had cut off all the sounds coming from outside. He probably didn't want others to hear our conversation. O descendant of the peninsula, I've heard the tales of your bravery. As your fame spreads far and wide, the status of the peninsula rises higher in accordance. This god sees that situation as very satisfactory. I quickly sent a signal with my eyes to Yu Young-hyuk, busy raising his momentum, telling him to hold it. Let's at least hear this guy out first. However, I've heard disturbing stories that lately, you've been building inappropriate relationships with foreign constellations. I began wondering whether I should keep listening or not, though. Archangels and demon kings are not constellations originally from East Asia or the peninsula, meaning they are foreign influences. Han Soo-young shot me a sneaky glare. Hey you, are you just gonna let this guy be? I shall cut him down. What the heck, is the wire crossed or something? How come I can hear Yu Young-hyuk's voice? I combined the midday tryst space. My declaration prompted an explosion of messages from her and Yu Young-hyuk. Hey, stop messing around. You want me to listen to that arrogant bastard's voice in my head too? You've taken words out of my mouth. I sighed softly after seeing the two growl at each other. Stop it, both of you. That's not important right now, is it? While we were squabbling inside our chat room, Pungbik was still continuing on with his dull moral lecture. Meaning, descendants' friendly behavior towards foreign influences has caused much dishonor to the peninsula, and this god considers that as a weighty crime. However, if you, the descendant, reflect deeply regarding this matter and repent, then Hell, a constellation that agreed with those words, even made his appearance, too. Constellation, founder of National Isolation Policy, agrees in part with the assertion of Heavenly Wind God. Of course, not everyone was like that. Our little peninsula boasted a surprisingly wide variety of constellations, after all. Constellation, bald general of justice, is polishing his head. Constellation, first sorcerer of Joseon, is clicking his tongue. Constellation, prisoner of golden headband, is yawning in boredom. Portion of Korean Peninsula's constellations thinks the declaration by Heavenly Wind God is old-fashioned. Who dares to hide behind anonymous modifiers and run their mouths off? As Pungbik's true voice rang thunderously in the air, the weather above began shifting ominously. Suppressed by that tremendous aura, several constellations quickly shut their mouths. Whatever the case might have been, he was in existence very close to the ancestor god of the peninsula. Although the individual amount received differed, constellations of the peninsula had indeed received benefits and favors from Hangik, and none could challenge them face to face as a result. Not even Chiak Junjeong himself. By the way, why are you still standing up? Eventually, Pungbik's gaze landed on me. The current atmosphere shifted ever so slightly from what it was like earlier. Did I not tell you to kneel? Ginormous pressure pushed down on me. Not just me, though. It pushed down on the entire Kim Dokya's company. Fables from Nebula Hangik are observing Kim Dokya's company. It felt as if a giant ancient tree had bent down to take a look at us. A giant tree that salivated after the nutrients meant for a newborn sprout. I quietly held that gaze for a little while before making my reply. I don't want to. Indeed you do. What did you say? I said I don't want to. Constellation, prisoner of golden headband, is liking your attitude. Constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, is coaxing you to start with a punch first. I came here to participate in the Great War, not to kneel to you. How boundlessly arrogant. I looked favorably at your bravery and wished to pardon your sins, but after you pardon me, what then? Pungbik's brows quivered at my pointed reply. You were thinking of absorbing Kim Dokya's company through the authority of Hangik, were you not? As if his hidden plot had been accurately pointed out, emotions could be spied on that stoic constellation's expression now. It is only obvious that your group must come under the wing of Hangik. Why do you think that? If Hangik did not exercise its might at the beginning, your nebula wouldn't have been born. As if he was a parent being betrayed by his child, Pungbik began shouting at me. Hangik is the founder of the peninsula. We gave birth to you, we set the morality you must follow, and we created the rules. It was us who determined what you'd see, feel, and think. Because the fable of Hangik exists, you exist here now, and through that fable you survive. 4 years ago in Earth's time, scenarios began on the Korean peninsula. I cut Pungbik's words off. When the peninsula fell into mortal danger, what did Hangik do at that time? When scenarios began on the peninsula, when the absolute throne appeared, when outer gods and calamities descended, and when the peninsula's incarnations and constellations had to work together because of them. Certain memories began rushing back every time I spoke a word. Scenarios, overcome by the gathering of people who had no one to rely on, the 4-yin demon beheading sword, plunging down on the blind throne, and the peninsula's constellations who lent their probabilities to that weapon. Fable, king of a kingless world, is glaring at Heavenly Wind God. Fable, king of a kingless world, has begun its storytelling. I didn't do anything, yet the fable began coming to life anyway. king of a kingless world was born as the absolute throne was destroyed. I recited the story of this fable, and through me, this fable spoke of itself. During those times, where were you and the oh-so-great constellations of Hangik, and what were you all doing? Tsujujujut. You bastard! Pungbik glared at me, as if he'd start vomiting blood at any second. Of course, I know that you and Hangik worked hard to aid the peninsula during its infant stages. I do acknowledge the value of the fable you people possess. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean everyone from the peninsula must swear loyalty to you. I finished my speech while watching Pungbik's beard tremble from rage. Everyone has their own way of clearing scenarios. Even if you're the peninsula's highest grade constellation, you can't interfere with the actions of Kim Dakya's company. Jiak Junjeong seemed to be enjoying my daring, fearless tone of voice. It'd probably be his first time seeing Pungbik get treated in this manner. You dare, you dare. In place of the rendered speechless Pungbik, a fable's forceful aura rose up from behind him. Great fable of the nebula Hangik is staring at you. Nebula Hangik is extending its roots towards Kim Dakya's company. Great fables belonging to Hangik began rising up to the heavens one by one like tree branches, and eventually formed an image of a gigantic tree. I knew what that was straight away. The tree that connects the heavens to earth below, as well as the totality of all the fables that Hangik puts to practice. The one fable that supports all those fables. The fabled tree Shindansu. Every fable of Hangik began with that very tree in front of my eyes. Shindansu spread its holy aura all around and extended its branches made up of fables. Seeing that admonition alone wasn't doing the trick, it was now trying to show off its might instead. What a bitter experience that was. The truly bitter thing about this situation was, though, I see that the real highest-ranked constellations of Hangik did disappear. What do you mean by that? This Shindansu was so much smaller and shabbier compared to the one that I knew. Not only that, the ends of the tree's roots extending towards us were all horrifyingly damaged. What I saw were great fables failing to sustain their shapes after not having absorbed nutrients for a long time. Most of the branches connected to these roots had withered almost beyond recognition. That was the total sum of what Hangik currently possessed. I speak of these words because I pity you. The Pungbik from the original storyline that I knew was not an obstinate geezer like this guy. Sure, he wasn't exactly the warmest guy around, but still, he was a constellation possessing far greater class and righteousness. However, something happened to Hangik, and the nebula's influence shrunk back at a rapid pace. The reason why Pungbik became so destitute probably had something to do with that event. You dare to show disdain towards this god? Pungbik roared out and roused up the powers of the wind. Giant storm energy began gathering all around us. As the enormous status suppressed the entire land, reincarnators from Kaiksanix archipelago began writhing around in pain. Han Suyong urged me one more time. Kim Dakya. I nodded my head. Although the current appearance of Hangik was lamentable at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with us. I took a step forward, prompting Yu Yonghyuk next to me to unsheath his sword, while Han Suyong unfurled the bandages on her left arm. And then, Great Fable, Demon World Spring, has begun its storytelling. Great Fable, Torch that Swallowed the Myth, has begun its storytelling. The great fables that had been held back until now opened their mouths simultaneously. Not only that, Great Fable, Kaiksanix Archipelago, is repeating its storytelling as if it's displeased. Along with a great fable that wasn't even one of ours, too. Shuwayayak. The roots of the giant tree flying in towards us began crumbling away from the billowing waves generated from our fables. Body of the great fable, Shindansu, is in great pain. Those menacing roots extending out to swallow us whole faltered in their tracks and scattered away, as if scared by the stories it could not devour. The still intact roots belatedly retreated, and the withered, bony branches screamed out loudly. Body of the great fable, Shindansu, refuses to heed the orders of heavenly wind god. But how? Shindansu withdrew its roots and instantly vanished from the view. Perhaps taken greatly by surprise from the statuses of the great fables we possessed, the freaking out Pungbik staggered back several steps. I sensed the constellations scattered around the neutral zone, looking in this direction after getting startled by this disturbance. But Bu suddenly popped up right above my head as if she was waiting for this moment. At the same time, I sensed her channel opening up. A large number of constellations have joined the channel. Bu's channel was connected to Bihyung's broadcast channel. I could picture that Dokibai's pleased face already. It was pretty clear why he had induced this situation. Although I wasn't too happy about it, this was something that had to be done sooner or later anyway. Constellation, Bald General of Justice, is paying attention to your voice. Constellation, Maritime War God, is waiting for your story. Demon King, Ruler of East Hell, is staring at you. Constellation, Scribe of Heaven, is waiting for you. Constellations of good, evil, and neutral are carefully observing you. Several indirect messages floated up one after the other. I stared at Pungbik and opened my lips to issue a warning not just aimed at Hongik. I will not say that everything we do will be righteous. However, the paths we tread will be decided by us alone. I declared loudly towards the constellations of the world. And no one can change our decision. Chapter 384, The Hottest Place in Hell 3. As if they were waiting for it, gazes rained down from the heavens. Constellation, Bald General of Justice, agrees with your words. Constellation, Maritime War God, nods his head at your words. Constellation, Prisoner of Golden Headband, asks you why you had to repeat something so obvious. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is coaxing you to quickly punch that old bastard. Pungbik heard what the Black Flame Dragon said in disbelief and shot a glare at the sky. He was about to say something, but then the next indirect message made him flinch just a little. Constellation, Goryeo's first sword, believes that Demon King of Salvation is correct. Pungbik's head snapped towards Chiak Junjeong right away. Junjeong, even you. As if he felt ashamed by it, the latter avoided the piercing gaze. Honestly, even I was surprised. No matter how badly it had fallen, Hongik was still the Korean peninsula's main nebula. Even under the current circumstances, it wouldn't have been easy for Chiak Junjeong to go against Hongik and side with me. Many constellations are getting interested in the clash between Kim Dokya's company and Hongik. Maybe it was due to Chiak Junjeong's declaration. I now could sense the attention of other constellations. Among the winds newly blowing in the neutral zone, I could sense their wary eyes locked on me. I looked back at Pungbik. Are you going to continue? Honestly, watching his eyelids tremble intensely that was difficult even for me. I spoke as if to mock Hongik earlier, but in truth, it wasn't as if Pungbik had been doing nothing to help with the Korean peninsula's scenarios. The thing was, the constellation who lent his aid to my mother back during the Returnees' War was none other than Pungbik himself. That damn event stole away her lifespan in its entirety, though. Maybe that could be the reason why I was so pissed off right now. The wind shall never forget today's matter. Pungbik glared at me for the longest time, before snapping his fan shut to vanish like specks of scattering dust. A large number of constellations are impressed with your backbone. Small number of constellations will remember that the reputation of Kim Dokya's company is not unwarranted. Gossipers of Starstream have recorded the applicable incident. Yu Younghyuk, Han Soo-young, Jiang Hui-won, and Yi Hyun-seong, everyone was staring at me. I couldn't spot any traces of fear in their expressions. Most likely, they were thinking something similar. It didn't matter what others said about our nebula. No, we only had to move forward towards the story we believed to be the right one. A choice befitting you, descendant. Chiak Junjeong, observing us, spoke. Some constellations will like that aspect of you and follow after you. Truthfully, many constellations of the Korean peninsula are focusing more on you rather than on Hongik. But, in return, those who hold animosity towards you have grown in number as well. I grew cognizant of the fact that the surrounding gazes now felt different after hearing him. Some constellations were glaring at us, while some were looking on with envy, and some even shook their heads, their eyes saying that we'd eventually become just like everyone else. Once upon a time, we used to be like you. Suddenly, it felt as if the fables these constellations experienced were near enough for me to reach out and touch them. Ancient great fables are starring at the fable of Kim Dakya's company. Every fable was the evidence of one overcoming scenarios. At times, they'd serve as someone else's entertainment. Every fable that reached this far had to break down and bend over in order to survive. The times when they had to make compromises with the reality of Starstream, and when they had to agree to the demands of the constellations and Dakibus in order to carry on, that was how they managed to get here. As if he was the voice of those times, Chiak Junjeong spoke up. Starstream hates stories that haven't been broken yet, especially so with a story as pure as yours. Pure and not broken yet. A chuckle left my lips after hearing that. I was surprised that the world viewed us like that, because that was basically ignoring every road we've walked on so far. We had been broken over a dozen times already. Kim Dakya's company didn't stand on 2 feet from the word go. After the Korean Peninsula's scenarios began, it had to endure against the constellations, schemes, and their inexplicable rage, just like so many other countless fables in other words. However, we managed to stand back up every single time, and now we've reached this far. To us, the word pure was more like an insult at this point. Great fable, Demon World Spring, is calmly staring at you. Great fable, Torch that swallowed the myth, is holding back its intense crying. As if they were agreeing with what I said, the 2 great fables showed some reactions. And in the future, we will continue to get back on our feet. The germinating 3rd great fable has displayed fetal movements. Even the 3rd great fable soon to awaken reacted the same. Chiak Junjeong, observing us, slowly nodded his head. I shall continue to watch your story. At the end of those words, he turned around to leave. Korean Peninsula's constellations under him glanced at us for a bit before disappearing alongside him. He had surpassed the level of historical figure grade and stepped into the fable grade. On top of that, he had been a constellation for a far longer period of time than I, and he would be one of the best allies to have on our side as he was a gifted natural-born fighter. Of course, that would be under the assumption of us fighting on the same side. I must have stood around looking too cool for my own good, since Han Soo-young, staring at me from the side, slapped my shoulder and jeered at me. Hey you, some people might think you're the protagonist or something. Feeling a bit sheepish, I sneaked a glance in Yu Yonghyok's direction, but he wasn't looking at me but at the distant horizon instead. It has begun. Scenario event has been generated. Regional conflict for Great War of Saints and Demons is scheduled to take place in the near vicinity of the applicable area. Neutral-leaning constellations and incarnations sitting around their scattered tents were stunned by the system messages and hurriedly stood up. When entering the conflict zone, camp selection will automatically generate. The sight of 2 enormous factions marching forward could be seen from afar. The white-winged angels, decked out in armors brightly reflecting the light, were dyeing the land in a silvery hue, along with incarnations and reincarnators. On the other side, demon kings stained in corrupted and demonic energy were advancing forward with their dependents in tow. Updated main scenario has arrived. Main scenario 80, Great War of Saints and Demons. Type main. Difficulty indeterminable. Clear condition. Participate in the Great War by siding with either camp of absolute good or absolute evil. Good-evil points of the camps will increase when the affiliated camp accumulate a higher number of victories in the scenario. Once the points of a camp exceeds 100, the victor in the war will be decided. Time limit. The applicable scenario's time limit is affected by chaos points. Reward. Fable related to Great War of Saints and Demons. Failure death. Current state of Great War's progress. Absolute good points, 56. Absolute evil points, 56. Chaos points, 51. Chaos points will increase the longer the Great War is being fought. You must select a camp in order to participate in the applicable conflict. The scenario rewards will be greater the sooner you choose your camp. We fell into a bout of silence while reading the scenario's contents. The first one to break it was Han Soo-young. Kim Dok-ya, what next? Do as we always did. Constellation, Hell's Scribe, is letting others know that the hottest place in hell is reserved for those who maintain neutrality in times of moral crisis. That wasn't even something he originally said, yet why is he being so damn chatty with that line? Constellation, Hell's Scribe, flinches in surprise and has closed his mouth. This Hell's Scribe was actually the author of Divine Comedy, Dante Alighieri, and that famous line often credited to him actually had been repurposed by the politicians of a later era. Still, that quote served to enhance his fame in the long run, so he should have accepted that as a part of his own fable. The hottest place in hell is reserved for those who maintain neutrality in times of moral crisis. It sure was a stirring quote when you first listened to it, although it was hard to figure out what meaning was there to it in the world where even one's moral choices served as someone else's entertainment. We need to decide this time. It'll be difficult to weasel ourselves out of this one like in the past, unfortunately. Whatever the case might have been, we were standing on the crossroads just like the others, regardless of what Dante had said. Well, one couldn't even participate in this great war of saints and demons if they hadn't chosen a side from the get-go anyway. Yu Young-hyuk stared at the message and spoke up. The Great War during the 1863rd turn ended in the victory of evil. Han Soo-young chose the side of evil. That was why. Why is it me again? Besides, this isn't the 1863rd turn, you know. Han Soo-young was right, though. This was not the 1863rd turn. Indeed, this was the third turn world of Kim Dok-ya Company. Let's go. The ferocious battlefield where the good and evil clashed could be seen in the distance. One of the battlefronts belonging to the expansive Great War of Saints and Demons had raised its curtains. 113th Regional Conflict of the Great War of Saints and Demons has been generated. List of individuals participating in the applicable regional conflict has been released. Right at the forefront of this great war stood a constellation that I knew pretty well. Constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is participating in the applicable scenario. Please spare me. Stay up. Archangel Nim, please. Pain moans rose up from all over the place. Heads belonging to the incarnations who chose to side with evil at the crossroad were being sliced off by the blades of the archangels. This was the war of fables. Just because of your affiliation with the fable of one side, you be treated as an enemy by the other side. Leaving the fallen incarnations behind, Uriel studied the battlefield with an expressionless face. Once upon a time, she sympathized with them. She felt sad at the incarnations being swept away and consumed by the great narrative, and she was angry at the misfortune they had to suffer. She was like that for a long time. At one point, doing that was the entirety of her life. I wanted to catch up with all the Star Stream broadcasts I missed, though. Uriel chewed her lip while looking at the waves of a demon king's army rushing in. Being born to spread the good didn't mean you could live your entire life doing only just that. Truth was, the physical dangers didn't eat away at a constellation, but the erosion of one's mind did. The emotional labor that lasted for an innumerable length of time had instilled a deep-seated disillusionment of the world, as well as unfathomable madness, inside her. Soul of constellation, demon-like judge of fire, is trembling unstably. Whether it was a strong constellation or a weak one, there was not one being who could take it easy inside scenarios, because scenarios were a system like that to begin with. Goo. To forget that they were being consumed by the scenario and to live for yet another day, constellations had to consume other fables. They would spectate on the scenario, get angry at someone's situation, pour out their criticism, show respect, or be moved by what they saw. It was the same story, even for an archangel like Uriel. Black, 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 get out of my way. I missed the initial broadcast because of you lot. Hellflame ignition, spewing out from Uriel's blade, struck the Demon King's dependents and turned them into ashes. She couldn't properly control her own power unleashed out of urgency. Also, hastily summoning only half of her true body to participate in the war played a large role in that too. Demon Kings participating in the regional conflict are shocked by the Archangel's power. Of course, this half of a true body was none other than Uriel's, so any all-Demon King couldn't even serve as her opponent. Demon King, Monarch of Stars and Logic, releases his status. Demon King, Grand Duke of Dragons and Foul Odor, unleashes a great fable. Demon King, Speed of Sound. Demon King lets out a crimson howl. Demon King, Duke of Everywhere, is being taken over by excitement and madness. The problem was, the Demon Kings participating this time were not some run-of-the-mill types, either. Uriel's expression hardened after she spotted the Demon Kings brushing past her hell flame ignition to come closer. The crazed Archangel is right before us. Do not fear, I the Demon King Buer will be with you. Originally, the Demon Kings scheduled to enter this particular regional conflict were not supposed to be them. However, they shifted around the location of combat personnel, and that meant Uriel now found herself having to deal with all these Demon Kings at once. You bunch of black, 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 get lost. Arrows imbued with demonic aura blanketed the entire battlefield. Uriel spread hell flame ignition like a barrier to block them. As she tried to look after the lower-ranked angels retreating in haste, several arrows managed to lodge themselves in various parts of her body. How amusing! O great angels, are you running away? You bring dishonor to the reputation of demon-like judge of fire. Shut up, you'd all be dead meat if only my full body had descended. Even under the barrage of attacks raining down, Uriel didn't moan once, breathing angrily like a bull instead. Stop ganging up on me like a bunch of cowards and face me one-on-one, you black black. Foo black square. If it's one-on-one, I can kick all your butts even if you're Agars, Gamagen, or Marbas. Yells from the agitated Uriel only elicited mocking leers from the Demon Kings. They all knew how powerful she was. They knew, and that was why 4 of them showed up to hunt down a single Archangel. And right up until the last moments, they remained meticulous. This is war, oh dear angel. Hell flame ignition of the Uriel covered in blood clashed with the Demon Kings. She was seriously strong. With only the strength of half a true body, she still managed to cut the arm off of Monarch of Star and Logic, and crushed the favored pet dragon of Grand Duke of Dragon and Foul Odor. Not only that, the Speed of Sound Demon King even lost both of his legs. Unfortunately, that was as far as she could go. She looked behind the moment she felt a chilling sensation, and the dagger belonging to the invisible Duke of Everywhere flew and squarely aimed at her heart. I shall be devouring an Archangel's fable today. She belatedly swung her sword in desperation, but her incarnation body had been slowed down by injuries, and it was far too difficult to respond. And in the next moment, stab! A blade glowing brightly stabbed past the chest of the Duke of Everywhere from behind. Black blood splashed down to the ground. The blade repeatedly pierced through the Duke's back, right up until the broken incarnation body's breath finally stopped, fragments of fables bursting out in a grotesque fashion. And a single stream of the white blade sliced off the head of the Duke next. Someone has killed the Demon King, Duke of Everywhere. Uriel saw the 2 people standing behind the fallen Duke, the ones she'd recognized no matter how far they were. They were standing so close to her at this minute. There's no way I'll sit back and watch my constellation get beaten up like this. Indeed, it was none other than her one and only incarnation. And then, Demon King of Salvation, is victorious in the Demon King promotion. Demon World ranking is being adjusted. Demon King of Salvation, has become 50th Demon King. The protagonist of the story she'd been watching for a long time addressed her. It's been a while, Uriel. Demon King of Salvation, has chosen the camp to side with. Chapter 385, Episode 73, The Hottest Place in Hell 4. There were times when a person's emotion of sheer happiness could be felt so vividly. Those moments when one would go, "Oh, so you can make that sort of facial expression too." Kim Dakya. The current appearance of Uriel was just like that to me. She extended her arms and vigorously embraced both me and Jiang Huiwan, proceeding to rub her cheeks all over us for a long time. In the end, Jiang Huiwan had to scold her a little. "Uriel, I can't breathe." Sorry." She got flustered and backed away, but her eyes continued to sparkle. Sometimes, I found it hard to fathom how such a pure but dumb archangel like her ended up with a modifier of demon-like. "How did you know this place? When did you get here, NG? Did you finish the Keixenix archipelago scenario already? I barely managed to catch a couple of scenes because I didn't have a lot of spare time. I'm really sorry. Why you aren't angry because I didn't properly sponsor you, right? It wasn't deliberate, you know." It wasn't just her expression. Even her voice conveyed her happiness, too. Jiang Huiwan and I looked at each other while listening to Uriel. She must have felt something similar to what I did, probably. The angel spoke without a hint of elegance nor carefully considered pretense. Fortunately, some words conveyed a greater level of emotion when the speaker was so earnestly over the moon like this. "Uriel, we understand. However, we should discuss the details at a later date." "NG, you're right. Now isn't the time, is it?" Uriel's gaze on me quickly shifted and landed on the army of demon kings glaring at us from the other side. I saw her expression cooling off in an instant and realized that my thoughts were perhaps premature. This angel was, without a doubt, demon-like archangel of flames. Demon King, monarch of star and logic, cannot understand your actions. And then there were demon kings willing to face off against such an archangel. Ranked 10th in the Demon King ranking, monarch of star and logic, Buer. 18th in the ranking, speed of sound Demon King, Bathan. Finally 29th in the ranking, Grand Duke of Dragons and Foul Odor, Asteroth. Even after excluding the Duke of Everywhere who died at my hands, there were still 3 Demon Kings alive. Each and every one of them was not an easy opponent to fight against, especially so the monarch of star and logic and the speed of sound Demon King. If both of Buer's arms were still intact, or for that matter, Bathan's legs, then I'd probably have to risk my life here. Demon King of Salvation. What is the meaning of this? Why are you fighting against other Demon Kings? I shrugged my shoulders and glibly muttered my excuse. I simply continued on with the promotion battle, that was all. Do you honestly believe that such an excuse will? Is there a rule that said the Demon King promotion battles shouldn't be fought just because the Great War of Saints and Demons is underway? Such a thing happened pretty often back in the First Great War, too. What are you? Bathan became incensed by what I said and formed an expression of a creature wanting to cut my head off. But too bad, there was nothing he could do when both of his legs were gone. You have reenacted a portion of the First Great War of Saints and Demons. Demon King, Asmodeus, is getting interested in your unexpected actions. Actually, what I've done was exactly the same as what Asmodeus did back in the First Great War. The monarch of star and logic, Buer's expression hardened as he threw out a question. You think you'll be fine after doing something like this? Of course not. I remained utterly unfazed by the Demon King's auras while awakening my status. However, I do think that you shouldn't be worried about me here. You have unleashed the Demon King's status. Exclusive skill bookmark is activating. 5th bookmark has been initiated. Exclusive skill, Lightning Transformation LV, 23 plus 13 has been initiated. Your current physical constitution is different from that of the applicable character. Your status has overcome the physical constitution penalty. My shoulders itched as the wings broke past my skin and emerged out into the open, and the buzzing sensation of the lightning transformation overlapped on top of that. In an instant, my body was enveloped in lightning. The three demon kings now carried flustered, panicky expressions after witnessing my rapidly rising status. Monarch of Star and Logic had lost one of his arms. Grand Duke of Dragons and Foul Odor had lost his pet dragon and was wounded all over. And finally, Speed of Sound Demon King had lost both of his legs, so basically, they were no longer relevant to the overall combat situation. Jiang Huiwan next to me unsheathed the Sword of Judgment and activated Demon Slaying. I wasn't satisfied by the fight I had with a Demon King the last time because it got stopped so. Uriel saw the Demon Kings taking retreating steps and became triumphant in no time at all. She opened her lips to speak. You bunch of black, weren't you so noisy back then? Why don't you say something now? Dakyaya Huiwana, let's go. Let's utterly smash those black square Demon Kings apart. I reached out and grasped Uriel's shoulder as she tried to advance forward with her broken incarnation body, currently fueled by her incendiary wrath. Her shoulder felt so feeble and weak right now. She formed a pair of small rabbit-like dot eyes after being held back so helplessly by my hand and looked back at me. Uriel, please step back. Are you worried about me? I'm fine, I'm Uriel after all. She held my hand with a deeply moved expression on her face. I felt a bit sad watching her be like that and could only form a quiet smile. I didn't mean it that way. But what then? Demon King of Salvation, has selected his affiliated camp. My participation message was floating up in the air. Most likely, she hadn't read that properly yet. Soon, though, the body of the puzzled Uriel gradually stiffened. Her eyes grew wider and wider, too. I stared into those eyes and spoke. Please be still. Uriel, this is going to end very soon. Maybe she had seen the message I was looking at by now. Camp the Demon King of Salvation, has chosen is evil. Kim Dakya pulled another Kim Dakya stunt, didn't he? Muttered Han Soo-yong as she watched the battlefield in the distance. The battle had entered a bit of a lull earlier, but after Kim Dakya made his unexpected entrance, it was heading towards a chaotic conclusion now. He was the Demon King who murdered another Demon King, yet didn't hide the fact that he was evil. She now could see the lower-ranked angels moving to surround him, and at the same time, Jiang Huiwan and her troubled expression, too. Yehyunseong asked, sounding worried, will it really be all right like that? Even if it's not, what can we do? Tell him to side with Eden now. Kim Dakya is originally a Demon King, you know, grumbled Han Soo-yong before shifting her gaze over to Yu Young-hyuk. You ain't gonna sit back and just watch, right? Of course not. You don't need to ask me, I'm evil. Han Soo-yong's sponsor was Abyssal Black Flame Dragon. From the get-go, she didn't have much of a choice. What about you, Yu Young-hyuk? What did your sponsor say, or was there no answer? Rather than answering her, he stared at the incarnation bodies strewn about the battlefield instead. Corpses of angels and demon kings could be seen among them, but in reality, most of them belonged to humans, meaning reincarnators. You see someone you know. Without saying anything, Yu Young-hyuk observed the collapsed reincarnators. A few still surviving and writhing about extended their hands towards him. Their wounds were too serious, and it was too late to save them. He lowered himself and stabbed his short sword in each of their necks. When he did, they all passed on with a peaceful expression on their faces. Yuri the Aristal, watching that scene, suddenly raised her voice. Soo-yong. Don't worry, Yuri, I won't let that happen to you. She could see the souls of the dead reincarnators scatter away. The ones fettered to the mandala would be revived even if they were killed on this island. However, being an immortal certainly didn't mean that it was okay for them to die. Great fable that lost its name has ceased to exist. Every time they were mobilized for a different scenario, they would gradually lose their own worlds. They'd forget their original lives and eventually even forget about their own deaths too. Most ancient good advises the reincarnators to be virtuous. Most ancient evil demands the reincarnators to choose. The majority of the dead would be those who had never thought about the concept of the greater good or evil. Han Soo-yong closed the eyelids of a dead reincarnator. The dead's face, his eyes now closed, was quite obviously neither good nor evil. You need to select your camp in order to enter the applicable battlefield. I shall choose my camp. The moment Yu Young-hyuk opened his lips to speak, Han Soo-yong narrowed her eyes and asked him, You ain't thinking of something else, are you? Before you guys got to Kaiksanix archipelago, you two fought like crazy, right? He didn't answer and simply stared at her. She could pretty much guess what that frustratingly stiff expression of his was implying, and just as she got ready to yell at him, he finally made his reply. This war must not be the great war of saints and demons, but a fight between us, meaning this place must not become a battlefield of others. Not the Great War, but the Battle of Kim Dokya Company. Han Soo-yong immediately realized the meaning behind those words. Only then neither good nor evil will win this war, and that development should be what Kim Dokya wants. I get what you're saying, but that's gonna be really tough, you know. Han Soo-yong immediately came in with a tackle. We do that, and we'll be turning our backs on both the demon world and Eden at the same time. You said that this isn't the 1863rd turn. Han Soo-yong pouted a bit, looking as if she got sucker punched. Kim Dokya, he's a hardcore bastard, all right. He might be the only idiot who'd come up with something this crazy as a solution in situations like this one. He's originally like that. It's the same story for you two. You two are so damn similar. At her rebuke, Yu Young-hyuk retorted with a curt tone of voice. You aren't that different from us either. What? I'm different from you two idiots. Anyway, let's stop yapping and get cracking already. They now could see Kim Dokya getting beaten up by the angels surrounding him in the distance. But then again, he suddenly declared himself to be evil in their midst, so it was only natural that the angels of Eden would be quaking in rage born from the sense of betrayal. Yu Young-hyuk declared first, I won't do it in half measures. So what? I'm planning to kill you if things go sideways, you know. Good, only then is there some fun in fighting you. Fine, that match we didn't get to finish back in Kaiksanix. Let's finish it right here. The figures of these two vanished towards the battlefield. Yi Hyun-seong, now left by himself and all alone, could only cry out in sorrow. Hang on, Soo-yong SSI, Young-hyuk SSI, what about me? Do whatever you want. Incarnation, Han Soo-yong has chosen her affiliated camp. Incarnation, Yu Young-hyuk has chosen his affiliated camp. Camp the Incarnation, Han Soo-yong has chosen is evil. Camp the Incarnation, Yu Young-hyuk has chosen is good. Finally, their own great war of saints and demons had begun. On a wide-open plain of the main island, where heaven's entire fighting force had gathered. The leader of the heavenly forces, Metatron, was in the middle of listening to the updates on the current situation from other angels inside the barracks designed to mimic his office back home. Olympus has revealed their desire to participate. Vedas has sent a dispatch saying that they will participate. Asgard has also declared their intention to participate. However, due to their own great fable, it seems that not many constellations will participate from this side. There hasn't been any contact, but we have spied some movements from Emperor as well. They are famous for their stick-in-carrot strategy, so. Hell's scribe is diligently moving inside the neutral zone. Thanks to him, the participation rate has shot up irrelevant of whether they are constellations or the reincarnators. Metatron studiously took notes of every single report, and after attaching a suitable response, sent them back. The great war of saints and demons this time was, as the name implied, a war with the fate of good and evil on the line. That was why Metatron was far more cautious and careful with this scenario. Absolute good points in the applicable camp is currently 56. And so far, The war was chugging along without any issues, with the sole exception of the special limitation that was attached to this particular Great War. That was, Chaos Points is currently 51. The so-called Chaos Points. When he asked the Great Dakibai about it, this was the answer he got. It's a very rare occurrence to present a stage of this magnitude for a conflict between ancient great fables. So, there needs to be a suitable risk of danger in accordance with the probability. What does that mean? It'll be no fun when detailed explanations are provided, so I won't offer you anything substantial. However, do remember this. No matter what happens, do not let the chaos points reach 100. Do you understand? If not, something truly horrifying will occur. Great Docubus couldn't care any less about the fate of a nebula. No, they were only hell-bent on creating more stimulating scenarios. So, these chaos points must have been the fruit of their malicious scheme. This is boring, scribe. Michael, polishing his sword in the corner of the barracks, spoke. I shall bring the head of Agars. Send me out. Michael had tasted humiliation twice at the hands of Kim Dakya and Yu Yonghyok on the Middle Island scenario. His incarnation body had fully recovered through the authority of revival, and now he found himself inside the main island scenario, waiting. Metatron formed a thin smile at Michael and his hotly burning desire. If we do that, the war will end too soon. Isn't it better to end a boring war as soon as possible? No, not necessarily. This war must be longer and more wretched than any other scenario in existence. Metatron looked at the screens being broadcast from all parts of the battlefields. Beings who had chosen the side of good or evil through their own decision were pointing their weapons at each other. Metatron knew that, although they were participating in this war as nothing more than simple mercenaries, their moral leanings would gradually change the longer the time went on. Most ancient good is wishing for a magnificent holy war. Constellations participating in this war would eventually grow to hate each other in the name of good and evil, and that hatred would burn brightly to create the next generation of fables. Michael, watching the battle, spoke in a sulky tone of voice. In that case, allow me to kill the bastards of Kim Dakya Company, at least. I have a score to settle with them. Metatron shook his head. Kim Dakya Company was an important variable in this scenario. That faction had to be used as much as possible. If it was before, sure, but it's not possible now. I have a different plan for them. If you step forward, Michael, then. It was right there that a scenario message announced itself. 113th Regional Conflict of Great War of Saints and Demons has been forcibly concluded. Metatron confirmed the attached information on the message. The 113th Regional Conflict was the battlefront that Uriel participated in. Forcibly concluded. There had never been a message like that before. It didn't end there, though. Chaos points have increased by 5. Chaos points is currently 56. Warning, chaos points have exceeded 55. Something is writhing around in the hottest place in hell. The calamity of revelation that decides the end of everything has begun its quickening. Chapter 386, Episode 74, Great War of Saints and Demons 1. Bluish arcs of electricity danced in the air, and the last android rushing towards them collapsed on the ground. Pushushuk. Yijai yanked her sword out from the bisected cables and wiped her forehead. Level up. Gil Yong, watching her from the sidelines, picked his nose and spoke to her. Nuna, you've gotten really good at this, haven't you? She also badly wanted to smack the boy in the head after listening to his sky-high, ego-filled words, but had to stop. You can't attack the target. Regardless of what else, these two kids were invincible in this worldview. Nothing good would come from rubbing them the wrong way. She alternated her gaze between Yi Gilyong and Shin Yuseung before throwing them a question. What are your levels now? 84. I'm 87, Unny. What? But you were 83 a few days ago. I lied, you dummy. Yijai watched the two kids bicker and replied with a lengthy sigh. I'm still 79, though. Still, she was able to level up quickly thanks to these two kids. Just as the slang implied, her leveling up was lightning fast, as if she was riding on a bus, and that placed them on the list of the most wanted individuals of next city. Andra Yajai, 1888 G. More correctly, it was her alone. From the get-go, the kids couldn't be attacked anyway, so they didn't even show up on the wanted list. I guess it's about time we escape from this worldview. I think it'll be over if we bring that down, Unnie. There was a huge tower occupying the center of next city where Shin Yuseung was pointing at. There was a battleship parked on top of that tower, and every time she looked at it, Yi Jai would receive a message from her sponsor. Constellation, Maritime War God, strongly recommends that you acquire that star relic. Now that is surprising, especially from our miserly general no less. Constellation, Maritime War God, dry coughs. It wasn't as if she couldn't understand her sponsor's heart, though. Anyone who clapped their eyes on that battleship's appearance would indeed understand where he was coming from. I just can't figure out why that thing's parked over there. If they managed to commandeer that ship, then the skis of all the worlds would become the Maritime War God's ocean. Yijai tightly grasped the hilt of her sword and spoke. Yeah, it might be fun to shock the socks off Ajasi and my master. Hey guys, why don't we clear this place now? Sure, it was getting boring using the bug all the time too. Yes, let's. The three arrived at a mutual agreement and began walking towards the tower, only for a completely unexpected message to enter their ears. Emergency patch has been updated. From tonight's midnight onwards, the applicable scenario will institute shutdown system. From 0000 to 0600, children under the age of 18 cannot utilize the applicable scenario. Yigilyong and Shin, Yuseung merrily running forward side by side, suddenly began faltering precariously. The boy muttered in a flustered voice, "En Nuna, I'm sleepy." Unnie runs. The two kids plopped down after saying that and fell into slumber. Yijai placed her hand near their noses and confirmed that they weren't dead. Applicable player is in shutdown state. For Yijai, this was one flabbergast-inducing situation. What the hell? I thought this worldview was 18 plus from the get-go. Why is this shutdown thing even introduced? Too bad there was no time to relaxedly stand around and complain. The tower's gates opened up wide, and hundreds of drones began sortying simultaneously in order to kill her. That was why. Oh shit. It seemed that this night was going to be a very long one for her. 113th Regional Conflict has been concluded. Outcome of the applicable regional conflict cannot be decided. This particular skirmish had no victors or losers. Heavily wounded demon kings supported each other and retreated, while panic-stricken Uriel vanished from here along with the lower-ranked angels. The only people remaining in the empty battlefield were reincarnators strewn about like the remnants of a defeated army, plus 5 men and women among them collapsed on the ground. I had no idea this would happen, muttered Han Soo-young in a dumbfounded voice. What Kim Dok-ya Company did after entering the regional conflict was pretty simple: participate in the war between good and evil, and suppress every other participant beside themselves. And then, the remaining folks would go for it and slug it out for the war with no winners. Applicable battle's outcome can't be decided. Lack of will to fight by the participants of the applicable battle has been confirmed. The Battle of Kim Dok-ya Company was not a life-or-death fight but a game, a sparring session, something with no determined winners or losers. And that was why it was not a war between good and evil, and naturally was not the great war of saints and demons, either. Applicable regional conflict has been excluded from the category of Great War of Saints and Demons. New 113th regional conflict is waiting to take place. The strength to forcibly break up a battlefield, that was the power Kim Dok-ya Company possessed right now. My sponsor should be really sad and disappointed by now. It couldn't be helped this time, Huey 1SSI. If it's at all possible, I don't want to fight against Uriel. It's the same story for me. With a slightly regretful face, Jiang Huiwan and Yi Hyunseong looked at the reincarnators of the battlefield. Although many had died and returned to the cycle of rebirth, there were a few who still managed to survive. They split the Elaine Forest essence in their possession and distributed it to the survivors. Kim Dokya, too, supported the surrounding reincarnators one by one and stemmed their bleeding by pressing their pressure points. Han Suyong spoke while looking at him. You started this whole thing with a definite plan, right? I always have a plan before starting anything. Then you should know that we can't keep this up forever. The timing for this particular conflict proved to be fortunate for them, but there was no guarantee that their luck would be as good the next time. Besides, there were definitely beings among the constellations on the side of good, or demon kings that the strength of Kim Dokya Company couldn't handle, and if they rushed into a battle with a too great disparity in combat strength, they might find themselves in mortal danger as well. However, Kim Dokya maintained a composed expression. We don't need to hold out for long, so it'll be fine. Han Suyong heard his relaxed midday tryst voice and hushed her own in reply. Okay, what then? We just have to hold on until the chaos points go past 90. Chaos points currently is 56. As if it was waiting for this moment, the message floated up in the air, and Han Suyong shot a glare at it. What's this point thing about? It sounds different from the good-evil points, though. You're right. Kim Dokya briefly explained what this chaos points thing was, that it would rise up when neither the good nor evil claimed victory, and the world's order collapsed as a result. What happens if that gets to full? The calamity of revelation will start. The calamity of revelation. Hold up, are you talking about the apocalypse dragon? The dragon of destruction from the book of Revelation, also known as the final dragon of the Revelation, a being referred to as the so-called apocalypse dragon. A humongous calamity that descended on the 95th scenario during the 1863rd turn. It was capable of sweeping away the constellations of the star stream with just a single flick of its tail. Kim Dokya grinned and nodded his head. Right, you knew about it. You want to increase these chaos points even after knowing that. Are you insane? What will you do if the apocalypse dragon is revived? Have you forgotten what happened during the 1863rd turn? If the apocalypse dragon did wake up during this scenario, then it'd bring forth a scale of destruction incomparable to that of the Great War of Saints and Demons. However, Kim Dokya carried a determined expression. It won't revive. And how do you know that? Kim Dokya shrugged his shoulders and turned around as his reply to her question. She was about to fly off her handle and yell out at him, but someone suddenly butted in. You're supposed to be a writer, yet you lack imagination. What was that, you bastard? Yu Younghyuk easily caught Han Suyong's small fist flying in. She growled menacingly. Why are you butting in on someone else's conversation? I couldn't endure any more of your pathetic mutterings, that's why. What bullshit are you talking about now? He's not the only one who knows about what happened in the 1863rd turn regression. Han Suyong immediately understood what he was saying. Indeed, Kim Dokya didn't hop over to the 1863rd turn alone. He departed along with two archangels in tow and came back with one of them. And what that implied was, Eden also knows about the stuff in that place then, and he's using that fact to his advantage. Kim Dokya's plan was pretty clear-cut. Once the chaos gauge reaches 100, the apocalypse dragon would be unleashed, and Eden was well aware of what would happen if that creature is released, since it had the information from the 1863rd turn. If they wished to avoid the fate of being destroyed, then they should immediately stop the Great War of Saints and Demons. That was the crux of the message Kim Dokya wished to convey. Han Suyong felt ever so slightly flabbergasted while looking at him, consoling the reincarnators with an utterly calm expression on his face. Just who in this world was capable of threatening a large nebula? That evil dude, He's basically telling them to choose between surviving together or perishing together. If things work out well, that's what should happen. However, a future where only we are killed could happen instead. Yu Yonghyok's expression was hard as he polished the dark heavenly demon sword. It was the most dignified, serious expression he had in a while. She could see his resolution from that expression. Most likely, his head was filled with thoughts of the worst potential situations. Kim Dokya's plan ends up as a failure. Then the members of Kim Dokya Company are annihilated in this place. And finally, he'd have no choice but to regress once more. Han Soo-young complained loudly. Is imagining horrible futures a unique habit of regressors? Only by thinking of the worst will you be able to prepare for the aftermath. Someone might think you've regressed 10,000 times if they hear you. In some other universe, that might have happened already. Didn't know you could say stuff like that, smirked Han Soo-young, and she shifted her eyes back to Kim Dokya in the distance. Him still wobbling about that reminded her of looking at an inflatable tube sky puppet, shaking around against the wind. Just as she couldn't read the inner workings of an empty sky puppet, she also couldn't read Kim Dokya's inner thoughts. She sometimes felt as if she could, but that was nothing more than some air leaking out from the puppet, instead. Why was she even trusting that guy, anyway? Maybe the one she couldn't really understand was herself. Why was she fighting together with Kim Dokya? She might find an answer if she used predictive plagiarism, but Han Soo-young purposely didn't. She thought that she should not do that. She looked to her side to discover Yu Yonghyok staring at the same spectacle as her. Hey, I want to ask you something. It's mystifying that you still mistakenly believe. I'll answer you earnestly. Right, you were one hell of a stubborn dude. I mean, you didn't even moan in pain once after you got tortured that badly during Kaiksenik's archipelago. His expression stiffened. I thought as much. You were behind that, weren't you? I didn't order it, but my kind Yuri understood my heart, that was all. Fable Kaiksenik's king slowly nods its head. Yu Yonghyok never once revealed his identity or information related to him, even when subjected to Yuri's horrifying torture. Han Soo-young dusted her butt off and stood up. In any case, you really okay with this? You were trying to kill Kim Dokya earlier, right? It doesn't concern you. A guy like you doesn't easily change his mind, so that means you didn't have a change of heart, but never planned to kill him in the first place. Well then, who was egging you on, Metatron? Yu Yonghyok's thick eyebrow twitched slightly when Metatron's name was brought up. So it was related. It seems that you've done your homework. I don't have spare time to do crap like that. Nah, I just brought it up because you suddenly mentioned Eden, you know. But after seeing your reaction, I guess Metatron wasn't the main instigator then. Han Soo-young's power of deduction caused both of his brows to quiver this time. Who could it be? Who could have upset our precious regressor like this? He's not a being that someone like you would know. Yup, I knew it. It's the secretive plotter, right? Yu Yonghyok looked up at the standing Han Soo-young. Her lips twitched a little as if to say, why are you so surprised like that? Hey, I'm not a moron, I'll have you know. I can easily guess the stuff your head manages to come up with. Incarnation, Han Soo-young, is using predictive plagiarism. More correctly, it's the multiple me's, though. A fable where hundreds, thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of Han Soo-youngs gathered together to predict the upcoming events. It was Yu Yonghyok's turn to ask this time. Do you know something about the secretive plotter? A really powerful outer god, right? He formed a disappointed face for a bit before speaking in a convinced tone of voice. I see that even if thousands of morons gather, they can't become a single genius. Wanna die? Fine, you know who that is then. There is one being that I can think of. Who is it? Rather than answering her right away, Yu Yonghyok recalled his memories instead. That bastard knew all of my histories, from the zeroth regression to the far-flung futures, the ones I haven't even experienced yet. If my guess is correct, then there can only be one such existence in this entire world line. Han Soo-young nodded her head in agreement. That sounds about right. There's only one with high enough probability. The two of them stared at each other for a little while, before muttering out the answers they thought of. However, who did you say it was? What kind of bullshit was that? Their answers were different from each other's. Chapter 387, Great War of Saints and Demons 2. The first person to raise her voice was Han Soo-young. What the hell? How can you even think that? Does one's intelligence get worse the more you regress? Taken words right out of my mouth. To think that a so-called writer would cook up something so unpleasant. She and Young-hyuk growled and glared at each other. And the first one to back off was also Han Soo-young. Foo. Right, regressing 3 times could mess with your mind and cause you to dream up weird things. So, you're saying that secretive plotter is Kim Dok-ya from the future. That's what I think. Fine, well, it's not completely impossible, I'll give you that. All sorts of crazy things happen in the star stream, and Han Soo-young was about to say, a novel can also become reality in our world, but quickly swallowed those words back. Even if that was true, she thought that such a thing shouldn't be mentioned in front of Young-hyuk. So she said something else. Wouldn't it be quickest to ask the secretive plotter, did you try to confirm it? He nodded his head. I had a deal with him. If I do something for him, then he'd answer a single question of mine. What did you ask him? I asked if his identity was truly Kim Dok-ya from the future. And then what? He said that he was. In that case, why are you? Let me be more clear, he said. Once upon a time, I might have been someone, but now I am no one. Might have been someone, but now they are no one. Han Soo-young quickly realized what was wrong with that statement. The secretive plotter didn't implicitly deny being Kim Dok-ya from the future in that reply. No, what he said was much closer to, I might be Kim Dok-ya, or I might not be than anything else. In that case, Young-hyuk not backing away from his guess made sense. Han Soo-young asked one more time, was that all you asked him? He knew of all the regression turns I've lived through. He was something once upon a time, but now just a simple, secretive plotter, a being that knew every regression turn Young-hyuk had lived in. Anything else? No. You kidding me? You fought like crazy just to ask him only that. Han Soo-young yelled at him while panting like an angry bull. That guy didn't exist in your previous regressions, right? If you couldn't find out his real identity, you should have at least tried to learn other info, you know. I did hear what his goal was. What was it? He said that there was something he wanted to change, and someone he wished to kill as well. It felt as if the more she heard, the deeper she was being sucked into the quagmire. By flipping the term, someone he wished to kill around, you'd get someone he can't kill yet. Was there a being on the level that even a godly existence like secretive plotter couldn't do anything about? That's all I've heard from him. That was all the questions I was permitted to ask. You couldn't dig out more info, though. That means I'll have to make another deal with him. If I do, then I'll have to bear a heavier cost than the last time, said Young-hyuk, and he shifted his gaze to the sky. She also looked up as well and activated midday tryst. Is he looking at us? I can't sense his gaze. That was a slightly disappointing result. They were chatting away openly like this so that the subject in question would hear them, but it seemed that he wasn't even watching them right now. Should she say it wasn't like secretive plotter? Han Soo-young spoke. Well, this is problematic. If a godly being on that level decides to butt into the middle of something important, then no matter how good our plan is, it'll be useless. Especially so when on a stage as important as the current Great War of Saints and Demons. If a small variable could flip the table on its head, then there was no way she'd not be concerned by it. However, Young-hyuk's thoughts were different from hers. He probably won't step forward personally. What makes you think that? The evidence is with him using Kim Dok-ya or me to carry out his schemes. If he was able to make a move, then he'd have done so already. An existence of his level would need to exhaust a great deal of probability if he intends to make a move. That makes sense. Who knew that the moment I'd think the shitty probability would actually come? I have something to ask you now. NG. I still haven't heard the basis for your unpleasant hypothesis. Why did you say the secretive plotter is that person? Yu Yonghyok's question elicited a smirk from Han Soo-young. What's this? I thought you weren't interested, but I guess it does bug you. You never fail to add unnecessary comments, don't you? Just before he could grasp the cold hilt of his sword, a rather sly voice came towards them from nearby. You two seem to be enjoying each other's company. Two people's cold, murderous glare squarely landed on Kim Dakya. He formed a bitter smile and was about to wave his hands around while backing away. But then, a new scenario message rose up in the empty air. New coordinates for the 113th regional conflict have been set. The gazes of the group were now fixed on Kim Dakya. Finally, time to make another move had arrived. Well, let's go and cause another scene then. As if they were all waiting for it, fables of Kim Dakya Company began clamoring loudly. New fable is sprouting in the Demon King of Salvation. List of candidates for Demon King of Salvation's second modifier have been generated. The demon world's second in command was called by a variety of modifiers: ruler of East Hell, demon world's proxy, destroyer of sanctity. Even though he carried many varied names, there could ever be only one true name for him. The master of the second demon world, Agars. Ever since the master of the first demon world suddenly disappeared, Agars had been protecting the demon world for the past thousands of years or so. He cut off the heads of archangels salivating over his territory and protected those fables that allowed evil to exist as evil. While he tested the qualification of evil, restricted, and even ruled over it, he focused all of his being on only one question. What did evil exist for? Every time he ripped apart yet another living being, he immersed himself in that question. It was not important whether this question had an answer or not. No, that question simply enabled him to carry on. 113th Regional Conflict has been forcibly concluded. 114th Regional Conflict has been forcibly concluded. However, this was his first time seeing such a spectacle in the thousands of years he'd lived so far. Everyone, be strong for a little bit longer. We've almost suppressed them all. There were people rescuing the reincarnators from the chaotic battlefield. The expendables being sacrificed regardless of the outcome of the great battle between good and evil were being saved by someone. Now normally, such actions would correspond to the side of good. However, the problem here was that a demon king was responsible for performing that very action. Chaos points have increased by 4. Chaos points are currently 60. Warning, chaos points have exceeded 60. Chaos? Neither good nor evil. It was something that existed outside of the world's probability and its natural order. You want to increase the chaos points and stop the great war of saints and demons. Is that it? Reddish horns sprouted up below the fedora pushed down deeply on Agar's head, which was his unique quirk whenever he was intrigued by something. Stop smaller-scale destruction with the threat of even bigger destruction. It truly is an idea only the Demon King of Salvation can cook up. The one to offer his opinion was the devil of lust and wrath, Asmodeus. Agar spoke, his fingers gripping the throne wagging to and fro. Why does he not side with evil? Surely he'd not lose out by joining this side. Once this great war of saints and demons concludes, his climax will be completed. It also means that the black square he pursues is not on the path of evil. Even then, he doesn't seem to be pursuing the black square of good, either. This was a far more awkward situation than if he had chosen to side with either the good or evil. Agars asked again, "What are your thoughts?" Metatron will make a move first before we do. There is simply no way that the aged angel who had been thirsting after this war more than anyone else would let his careful plans get thrown into disarray. Almost at the same time as those words came to an end, a single-line message arrived through the Demon King's line of transmission. Agar's, I've contacted you with a matter I need to discuss. The torn corners of Agar's lips curled up in a smile. Metatron, I'm sure we don't enjoy a relationship where we can relaxedly chat away our spare time like this. The highest authorities in the demon world in Eden currently were speaking face to face through a screen. Just from the exchange of their gazes, a powerful burst of probabilities sparks exploded out. I don't mind shooting the breeze with you, but for now, it seems that I need to borrow your power for a little while. Have you ever heard of a story where good and evil joins hands? Well, the stories of evil, trying to achieve its goal by any means necessary, are quite common, aren't they? Even after hearing Agar's sarcastic tone of voice, Metatron remained composed. There is a certain immature nebula, young juniors, that believe they are the center of the universe. It was pretty clear who those juniors were in this little story. Agar's chuckled and replied, "To think you use the hotline just so that you can trample on a small nebula. How amusing. If things go wrong, then even the great war of saints and demons could collapse because of that small nebula. Do you wish to instill discipline in them as a senior of the star stream? Then, your K-Kondi disposition still remains, I see. Let's just say that I merely wish to teach them the true ways of the world. I decline. I don't need to join hands with someone like you, because crushing a nebula like that is nothing to me. I'm not proposing that we join hands." "Then what?" Rather than a verbal reply, Metatron floated a small crucifix above his hand. It rose up in the air and continued to spin around. Kim Dokya Company was able to ruin the battlefields due to the fact that they have been exploiting how the forces are balanced, each side's power being equal. So what? But what if it's a battle where that balance has been broken from the beginning? Metatron blew at the crucifix. When he did, its axis of rotation was slightly disturbed, and it began spinning unstably. Agar's asked as if he was displeased by something. "Are you suggesting that we create a battlefield where one side is at a disadvantage from the beginning?" "That's correct. Unless the combat forces of either side were evenly matched, Kim Dokya Company would have to try to shift the balance if it had tilted to one side already. If it had tilted towards evil, then lean towards good, and if it was tilting towards good, then push back to evil. If that situation was exploited inversely, then it'd not be an impossibility to engineer a regional conflict where Kim Dokya Company would be met with annihilation, too. And you want to start a battle with who in disadvantage now? We should play fair in this matter, at least. If we create a regional conflict with the evil side in a disadvantage, then I shall create another one with good at a disadvantage." "Interesting. I guess that you dearly wish to kill them even at the expense of sacrificing angels. We can't sit back and watch the chaos points rack up like this. Also, by creating several regional conflicts, we will be able to disperse Kim Dokya Company. What if they don't react to this provocation? Wouldn't that still be enough then?" Metatron's eyes, as seen on the screen, were glowing in white light. "If they don't respond, then the ultimate victor of this war would end up being good and evil after all. Gate leading to 115th Regional Conflict has opened. Gate leading to 116th Regional Conflict has opened. Gate leading to 117th Regional Conflict." I chuckled hollowly while watching the gates blanket space in real time. I knew it. There was just no way that Metatron or Agar's would let this matter slide like that. Jiang Huiwan watched the portals that appeared and disappeared in real time and asked a question. "Dokyo SSI, what's going on?" "They've started several regional conflicts at once." "But can that even happen?" "Originally, no. Even if it's nominally a regional conflict, it can't start and end that quickly, you see. 115th Regional Conflict has concluded. 116th Regional Conflict has concluded." Along with the battlefields that were concluding abruptly, the scenario message floated up in the air as well. Current state of Great War's progress. Absolute good points, 57. Absolute evil points, 57. Chaos points, 60. The good-evil points were rapidly climbing up as if to compete against the chaos points we had racked up. The one who eventually shot up from his seat first was Sing-Shong. We can't just sit back and do nothing. He clenched his fist tightly and continued on. There must be reincarnators being sacrificed in those battlefields. Of course there are, but if we enter one of those, we'll all die, replied Han Soo-young as she chewed on her nails. Excuse me. Don't you get it? Those are all traps. They made up their minds to totally destroy us, that's what. Yeon-seong dazedly stared at me and I nodded my head at him. Han Soo-young is correct. Most likely, we will be attacked the moment we enter there. It'll be the same end, even if we don't enter. The complexions of the group became gloomier after hearing Yoo Young-hyuk's words. Currently, the members of Kim Dokya Company were split up among good and evil. If the victor of the Great War of Saints and Demons was declared in this fashion, then the losing side would be met with a terrible fate. Obviously, the incarnation bodies would cease to exist, and even if one's luck was good and they became a soul, one would be tortured by the intense heat of hell and his or her ego would be destroyed in the end. We had no choice but to participate in the battles. It can't be helped, I guess. Sometimes, one had to step right in knowing that it was a trap. I quickly divided the members. Jiang Hui 1 SSI and Ye Hyun-seong SSI, please participate in the 117th regional conflict. Han Soo-young and Yoo Young-hyuk, you two enter the 119th gate. Hey, hold up, what about you? I'll enter the 121st gate alone. Yoo Young-hyuk glared at me and wordlessly grasped the hilt of his sword, so I quickly made myself clear. And no, I'm not saying that I'll really enter alone, you know. Then who are you going with? Folks who will become our allies. This time Han Soo-young tackled me. Who'd want to become our allies in the current situation? Indeed, no one would want to side with us, normally. However, if my thoughts were correct, then at least there was one. No, make that two. Nebula Underworld is waiting for you. I smirked and replied, my parents. Chapter 388, Episode 74, Great War of Saints and Demons 3. After sharing brief goodbyes with my companions, I immediately sent a message to the underworld. A reply came back in no time at all. Constellation, Father of the Rich Knight, has permitted your entry. Constellation, Queen of the Darkest Spring, has permitted your entry. Nebula Underworld has opened a portal that will summon you. Su-cha-cha-cha-cha. Now originally, it was not easy to leave beyond the scenario's boundaries when a massive scenario was already underway. However, the underworld had willingly spent an enormous amount of probability for my sake. I was really grateful for that. I might be called their successor, but I haven't even paid them a proper visit to say hello after getting their help the last time. Now that I thought about it, I was kind of apprehensive, too. What if the reason for them permitting my entry without any issues was to beat me up for not visiting the underworld until now? Kim Dokya. A message suddenly came flying in and startled me. I quickly looked up. It wasn't via midday tryst, which meant there could be only one who had sent me this message. What's this? I thought you'd be busy after becoming the branch manager, but you still have enough leeway to mind what's happening this side too. No, I don't. I made time, though. Baehyung, floating in the air, grumbled a bit while sucking on leaf tobacco. This guy. It looked as if he was fatigued from overworking after becoming a manager recently. He stared at me with complicated eyes and let a long sigh escape from his lips. I sensed the surrounding channels. Transmissions get blocked off temporarily. You're trying to do something really dangerous. When did I ever not do that? This is different from the past. This time, the entirety of the star stream is paying attention to the things you're doing. I think I've heard that hundreds of times by now. You keep this up, and all the probabilities karma you've accumulated so far will blow up in your face. You know what that means, don't you? I nodded my head. I clearly saw all the horrifying things that happened after the twisted probability exploded forth back in the Demon King selection. And honestly, I've been often feeling as if I was standing on a Jenga tower, missing quite a few blocks lately. You be careful now. You can't stay lucky forever, even if you are under protection by great Dakibus or outer gods. Under the protection of who? Forget it, I shouldn't have said anything. Bihyung shook his head and lightly spread some smoke in the air. When he did, the frozen channels began opening up once more with the tobacco smoke as the center. Come back alive, don't die. Is that something you should say to a guy heading to the netherworld? He didn't have to say anything, but I knew that, most likely, Bihyung had been stopping all the interference attempts coming from the Bureau. He was just a measly little low-ranked dakibai the first time we met, but now he became big enough to help me out in this manner. Indeed, one had to live long enough first to see something like this. Transmission through spacetime has begun. All sensory perception seemed to split apart before me, and when I opened my eyes again, the blackened and withered grounds of the netherworld greeted my presence. It was the underworld. Originally, I needed to utilize the services of the boatman Karen and cross the river first, but that step had been omitted this time. I walked on the graveled banks of the dried-up river and headed off towards Hades's palace for a while. The moment I stepped inside the outer castle, though, tens of thousands of gazes landed on me as if they had been waiting for my arrival. From the 3 judges of the underworld to the innumerable number of souls, judging from how ferocious the overall atmosphere was, I had to conclude that their gazes were not friendly at all. Judges of the underworld have discovered your presence. As expected, there was another purpose in summoning me here, wasn't there? Shut. Emitting statuses that might turn every living thing into withered, mummified husks, the 3 judges of the underworld approached me as if they were gliding in the air. Each judge was a fable-grade constellation. I quickly grasped the unbreakable faith attached to my hips. Even if I had grown stronger, it was not going to be easy trying to fend off against these 3 when we were in the underworld. It was right then that the leading judge's eye level began lowering towards the ground. That was the start. The second and third judges also lowered their eye level. All 3 of them were now kneeling before me. And the army of the underworld following after them all began settling down like a violent but low tidal wave. I took a closer look, and that volatile atmosphere I felt earlier was a bit different in nature to what I was assuming earlier. In fact, the judges of the underworld were looking at me while wiping away at their eyes, as if they were deeply moved about something. Kugagagugu. The underworld itself seemed to have knelt before me to open up a path. It was the path that led into the inner sanctum of the palace. Only 2 constellations were allowed to walk on this path up until now. We welcome you to the kingdom of the night, O heir to the underworld. Along with the judge's declaration, a system message floated up in my view. You are currently the prince of the underworld. While moving through the palace's interior, I couldn't help but feel a bit strange inside. I figured that something like this might happen after becoming the successor to the underworld. But still, experiencing a near-vertical rise of my station made the inside of my brain go all soft and mushy. I had never been treated this warmly before in my life. On top of that, what was up with this rather gloomy and decorative costume? Character Ricardo von Keixenix asks you if you were also a prince. The 4th prince of the Keixenix archipelago, sharing the same vision as me, decided to say something. As I deliberated on what my reply should be, the judge attentively studying me also decided to address me. Excuse me, Your Highness. Yes. I'd like to apologize for the matters of the last time. Now that I thought about this Ajaci, he was the same judge who greeted me when I entered the underworld in order to recover Shin Yuseung's soul. He was the one who drank lots of Yamada no Orochi's snake wine and helped me in secret. What was his modifier again? No, it's fine. Things worked out well in the end, so it's all right. I was actually grateful back then. The judge lowered his head as if he was feeling apologetic and pushed the doors to the audience chamber wide open. The king of the underworld is waiting for you. I tensed up and stepped across the doorway along with the judges. The confidence-inspiring statuses from them guarding my side made me feel a bit weird inside, though. If I become the master of the underworld, I'd get to order around constellations like them. Fufu, I see, so that's what happened. Persephone's voice coming from the darkness interrupted my chain of thoughts. She sat on her throne and was busy chatting away with someone sitting on the top of her hand. Bayat bayat abayat. HMM, it was the same story back then too. Bayat bayat. It was a little machi bouncing around. I knew who that voice belonged to. And even before I could say something, Bu discovered me first and cried out in happiness. Abahet, abahet. Our young successor has finally arrived, it seems. I didn't know why Bu was here, but still, this wasn't a bad development. Persephone seemed to be thoroughly entertained by her adorable antics after all. Hades's stony gaze and Persephone's warm, gentle one landed on me simultaneously. It felt as if my whole body was freezing up as this itchy sensation traveled all over me. As expected, just the glance of a myth-grade constellation contained enough power to overwhelm all existences. I recalled Hades's incredible battle against Poseidon and performed a simple standing greeting with a bow of my head. It's been a while, O father of the rich night and queen of the darkest spring. Indeed, it's been too long, my child. Have you been well? Oh, yes, I have. How about you, my queen? Fufu, we've been doing well. Although we were a little saddened that our only son paid us a visit so belatedly like this. The conversation we shared had this festive holiday vibe to it. Since I didn't have any experience in things like this, I couldn't figure out at all on how to carry on with the conversation. Hades, sitting on a commodious throne, was looking down at me with an expression I still couldn't read, while Persephone carried a brightly smiling face as she continued to talk to me. The loneliness from your absence has been filled by our littlest granddaughter here. To think I'd get to see a Dakibai granddaughter in our old age. Indeed, one needs to live long enough first to see such a thing. She must have really liked Bu still going, baat baat. Persephone gently patted the small Dakibai sitting on the back of her hand. Although we have a grandchild, you still regretfully lack a partner. When are you planning to introduce us to your mate? That I still need to think, Abo. The top question nobody wanted to hear during the holidays flew in at me right away. It was right then the silent judges decided to step forward. According to our investigations, there are several potential candidates, Your Majesty. Ho, is that so? Yes, this data has been compiled after investigating through the Olympus's fate matching system Cupid's arrow shot and help us Duo Venus. TL. Duo is apparently a matchmaking company in South Korea, specializing in finding marriage partners. Not sure if I got the reference right, though. Judges, you seem to have done something productive for once. And no, hang on a minute here. Why were these geezers called judges investigating my private life? Unfortunately, a hologram floated up in the air without giving me a chance to stop them. Firstly, this is the candidate no one. What popped up on it was a certain footage. Dakya has a Dakya's life to live, after all. A Dakya's life. Dakya SSI, that's a wonderful assertion. What the? Out of all the footages available, why did they have to go and bring out such dark history? The judge spoke in a composed tone of voice. Candidate no one is a deeply considerate woman. Not only can she accept our prince's peculiar sensibilities with tolerance as vast as rivers and oceans, but she also possesses a gentle, warm personality and natural decisiveness, as well as a wonderful outer appearance. Honestly speaking, she may even perhaps be out of our esteemed prince's league. It felt as if the more I heard him speak, the more dazed I got. Next up is candidate no 2. Following her, a certain woman sucking on a lemon candy and blessed with prim eyes as well as a distinctive beauty spot. Just below one of them appeared on the screen. Dummy. Why are you crying on a nice day like today? I mean, it's even snowing too. I promised to think up a nice modifier later on, okay? The judge formed a contented smile while looking at the footage and continued on with his story. Although candidate No. 2 possesses an abrasive personality and often resorts to biting, sarcastic remarks, she also happens to share a special relationship with our prince. She is the sole existence who fully understands our prince's dark hobby, and not only that, they can even converse freely regarding that hobby. Truly, a special being, with no one else like her in the Yup, the matchmaking system of Olympus had definitely lost a lot of its marbles, hadn't it? Before the face of the third candidate could appear, I summoned up all my courage and shouted out, "No, hang on a minute. I don't have any thoughts of marriage yet." The judge lowered his head as if he wanted to apologize and backed off. If the esteemed prince isn't ready yet, then the introduction of the next candidate can be delayed until the next time. I wonder who'll be able to tame this stubborn prince of ours. Persephone complained in a tone of voice, eerily similar to my real mother. Well, if all else fails, it'll be fine to bring the Dakibai that gave birth to this child as your partner. Both Hades and I are not bound by humanity's trifling and old-fashioned idea of one's preference. Mary Bihyung, I'd rather kill myself. Hades and I will not interfere even if you possess the sexual preference of man who knows his ignorance, and sage of idea. Judges of the underworld are waiting for your choice with keen anticipation. A small number of constellations are getting interested in your preference. Constellation, who enjoys changing genders, is paying close attention. I lightly sucked in a breath and quickly opened my lips to speak. Mother. Persephone's eyes trembled after she heard my words. What did you? I believe you already know why I came here. I've come to ask you for a favor. Even if the time flow was slower in the underworld, I couldn't dither about for too long. From the get-go, I had only one reason to pay a visit to this place anyway. Please lend me the army of the underworld. My words finally prompted Hades to break his silence. Do you understand what that implies? A voice that seemed to blanket the world in pure darkness began pressing down on the entire palace. An existence of the underworld permitted to lead the army. There was only one such being, and that was the master of this realm, the king of the underworld. I am aware. Does that mean you shall officially accept the position of the successor? I nodded my head. If you agree to become the king of the underworld, then once all these scenarios are over, you must remain here to rule this realm. Do you truly understand what that means? It means that I cannot go to the world of the living without special circumstances. Are you saying that you shall willingly succeed the throne of the underworld and be locked up here for the rest of your life? Yes, I unhesitantly replied. Hades slowly stood up from his throne and stared at me with a certain air of aloofness. Even though I've grown much stronger, fighting against Hades was still out of the question. My heart felt as if it'd explode from the nervousness, but since I was doing it, I had to see it till the end. The power of the underworld was essential if I wanted to win the great war of saints and demons. I shall become the official successor of the throne of the underworld. Chapter 389, Episode 74, Great War of Saints and Demons 4. I'd become Underworld's official successor. Even though I was the one who said it, it didn't feel all that real to me. However, it seemed that I wasn't the only one who suspected the sincerity of my declaration. The king of Tartarus and the ruler of the night, Hades, was glaring at me. You have spoken a lie in Underworld. Accompanied by the icy sensation, cold enough to freeze my toes, death was now staring straight at me. Right after becoming our child, I see you're already learning to deceive us. Hades rebuked me in a cold voice and stood up from his throne to walk closer to my position. I wanted to stand up from my spot right then, but my body didn't want to move. The status of a myth-grade constellation had currently suppressed my entire body. That was why. Thankfully, nothing untoward happened. Hades did get to where I was, but then unhurriedly brushed past me and walked straight out of the royal palace. I breathed a sigh of relief. and turned my head around to find Persephone rubbing her chin with a meaningful smile on her face. HMM. Is this the conflict between father and son that I've only ever heard about? For a tone of voice coming from a troubled-looking face, she sure sounded rather entertained. An eternal battle between a father and a son, with the mother in between. That sounded like a narrative, deeply stained by the ways of Olympus. As if to say I shouldn't worry, Persephone lightly patted me on the shoulder. Only then did I sense the muscles of my body frozen by Hades' status loosen up. Do not be too concerned, for your father's personality has always been like that. However, your guilt in this matter is just as grave after daring to spout a lie first. You've never harbored thoughts of staying in Underworld from the beginning, have you? She perfectly hit the mark, and I had nothing to say. I never wanted to take over for Hades and become this realm's king. What I wanted was Underworld's powers, not to inherit its throne. Hades probably had cottoned onto my motives a while ago. It will take some time before that fellow's anger has sufficiently cooled down. I'm sorry. No need to apologize. It's true that both Hades and I already knew you never planned to remain in this realm anyway. Persephone's eyes arched to a pair of gentle crescents. If it's all right with you, accompany your mother to a meal. Persephone's dining table I hadn't seen in a while remained pretty much the same. Slabs of well-cooked and delicious-looking steaks, as well as salad, laid out in several layers on top of a large plate. On the outside, they resembled foods commonly found everywhere, but I already knew very well that those were no ordinary meal. Bravery of an empress of swords who conquered the world. Wisdom of a third-circle magician who spent his entire life in a library. Will of a swordmaster who couldn't use either sword strengthening or sword manifestation. I wondered if I saw something wrong here, and read the menu one more time. Hurry and have your fill. Do you not find the menu to your liking? No, it's not that, but now that you've become a constellation, you must consume proper fables to survive. You won't be able to absorb enough nutrients through the foods of regular humans. I hope that, as you're an adult now, you've managed to fix your picky eating habit. She sounded like my real mother by saying that. Your mother worries a lot about you, whether you're eating properly and on time or not, if you're getting enough sleep. My hand moving towards the fork came to a stop at her words. Have you spoken to my mother? Fufu, we've talked to each other a few times. If it was Persephone, then she was fully capable of doing that. The foie gras placed before me had this name even. Heart of a mother sending her child away. This couldn't have been my mother's actual heart, now was it? I put the fork down and spoke. I see that the type of foods has changed since the last time. There were swordmasters and archmages here in the past, if I recall correctly. The Isle of Reincarnators have opened now, so we should enjoy special dishes for a change. Wouldn't you agree? I may look this way, but I'm still a member of the Gourmet Association, so I shouldn't be eating the same food every day. Her fork and knife moved, accompanied by rich gravy. Aromatic paragraphs leaked out from thinly sliced fables. Persephone's graceful hand movements brought that food into her mouth. What she ate just now was will of a swordmaster who couldn't use either sword strengthening or sword manifestation. And some fables will disappear if you don't make an effort to consume them. Dying fables were disintegrating at the end of the fork. Fables that no one searched for were pouring out entrancing sentences on the tip of Persephone's tongue right up, until she consumed them. I felt complicated while watching that sight. Persephone looked back and smiled. I'm aware that you are dissatisfied by the eating habits of the constellations. You probably don't like the way we easily consume the joys, angers, sorrows, and pleasures of incarnations. However, every incident taking place in the universe is destined to be left behind as a fable. You, me, other incarnations and constellations will be consumed by something else eventually. The lives of all living beings would become the stories of the star stream. If we're bound by such a fate, then the best any constellations could do is to act towards preserving the most varied spectrum of fables. That is my belief. leaving behind varied fables, and preserve varied types of stories. Maybe what Persephone said might not be wrong. In her own way, she was pursuing what she believed to be right in the star stream. This was probably the reason why she was a member of the Gourmet Association, too. But I was sure that she didn't invite me here to speak of her philosophy towards fables. May I ask, what is it that you really wish to tell me about? In truth, Hades does not want you to remain in this place. Does that mean he doesn't want me to be his successor? It's different from that. If I were to put it into words, Persephone spoke, as she began cutting the delicacy placed on the plate in the middle of the table. Hades and I, we do not wish for you to stop as just the king of the underworld. That means Olympus has fallen. The underworld, too, has lost its former glory. Being satisfied with the position of the king of the underworld, now that is no different than placing your name on the coattail of a disappearing fable. Underworld is a good fable. And it's a declining fable, too. Indeed, the power enveloping underworld currently was not like this in the past. An ancient and withered fable, a story that got progressively spoken of less and less in the star stream, would lose its power little by little. Persephone's unreadable eyes staring at the delicacies contained deep-seated melancholy. Maybe she had been constantly thinking about this, even as she dined on and enjoyed many different fables. The fear that eventually his and her underworld would be buried under the forgotten alleys of passing time and become another stuffed piece in the Isle of Reincarnators. That is the undeniable way of time itself, as long as we exist within the star stream. The moment I heard her words, I was overcome by this unfathomably deep, intense sorrow. It was the kind of sadness that I'd never experienced before. Both Persephone and Hades would disappear. From the memories of people, from my own memories, and the story they had compiled would disappear forever. I didn't like constellations. I disliked their actions, and I disliked the way they peeped on the world itself, too. But why? Did I not want to see Persephone and Hades disappear? Maybe I didn't want to acknowledge this truth because I unknowingly spoke in a curt voice. Why are you being so nice to me? I bit down on my lips before opening them again. I merely came here to use you. If I failed to acquire the power of Underworld, then Kim Dakya Company would end up in grave danger on the Isle of Reincarnators. Even then, I came out and said those words. Perhaps I wanted to confirm something as a human called Kim Dakya, and not as Kim Dakya Company. The fourth wall is faintly shaking. Fruit of good and evil is worsening your guilty conscience. Even if that confirmation turned out to be a useless waste of time. Persephone quietly studied me for a little while, lightly wiped her lips with a napkin, and extended her hand in my direction. Her eyes were gentle and friendly, with not a hint of animosity in them. Flustered, I tried to get up, but her status had already reached my shoulder. A very long time ago, we have received a certain revelation from the three sisters of fate. A revelation. It said a successor to the darkest night who will end the most ancient myth will appear. Abruptly, I recalled the story Dionysus told me before. Several constellations, including myself, believe that you will be the one to reach the black. The several constellations back then must have been Persephone and Hades. Meanwhile, she continued on. I was initially furious after hearing that oracle. Furious because I possess the fable that can't have children. I had no idea that Persephone had such a backstory. Could it be that the reason why she had no children until now was because of that? Persephone lightly brushed my hair back. At first I waited, wondering if it was possible. Maybe I'd be blessed with a miracle. Maybe we'd be blessed with a beautiful child who'd remember our stories. Even if only the darkness, hellish landscape, and prisons existed here, we were confident of raising our child better than any of the 12 gods of Olympus as long as given a chance. To teach our child the ways of understanding the darkness of other beings, to tell him the kind of hell that others could never sympathize with, and to show him the merciless prison punishing the evil that tramples on the righteousness of the universe. For many hundreds of years, I lived on in that delusion. The ends of her fingers were trembling ever so slightly. I couldn't dare to understand the meaning behind that tremor. I simply couldn't even begin to unpack the pain and the hatred towards Olympus contained in each word she spoke. Persephone managed to sigh softly and continued on. Hades and I forced our way past many things for a very long time. We knew that we couldn't have children, but we were never unhappy. Even if the underworld would come to an end in our generation, and no one would remember the fables we had lived through, we are different from the 12 gods, that were different from those parents who forcibly passed on their fables to their children, that we are complete as just us. But then one day, you made your appearance. Persephone's eyes were now looking at me. Actually, he was the first one to discover you. She continued on, in the voice of someone in a dream. He said that he started watching your history from when you managed to survive in the subway. At first, I could hardly believe that there was a child like you, because I believed that such fables were over in this world. I can still remember his excited voice when he talked about you. We watched a small fable that grew up all alone fighting against the world itself. We watched, as you challenged the mighty constellations, faced off against the outer god, and while resisting against Dakibus scenarios, managing to amass 5 fables to be reborn as a small constellation among the stars. I recalled the moments of Kim Dakya Company being born a long time ago. Back then, Persephone was one of the 5 constellations who supported me. That was when we first began thinking about this, that we wanted to become your parents. I barely managed to swallow back a certain something trying to well up. I felt that I could just about understand the truth of the affection Persephone had shown me all this time. Just a tiny little bit. Both Hades and I do not wish for you to end up as the king of the underworld. We also do not wish for you to be bound to us, and do not wish for the lives we've lived, our history, to become the rules that you must abide by. No, all you need to do is to advance forward towards the end of all scenarios, like you've been doing all along. But I am the underworld. You're our son, that is all that matters. I didn't possess a single thing to repay that kindness. All I could give them was just the promise of a future that hadn't been written yet, the one without any guarantees. When I reach the black square of all scenarios, I'll definitely be with your stories as well. Persephone formed a faint smile. Head to the terrace. Your father is waiting for you. I didn't have any good memories of my father. My father, drunken out of his mind and beating me up. Dissatisfaction towards the world spat out like curses, and the inexplicable animosity aimed at me. I only had memories of a life where I simply had to endure and live on. Pardon me. Hades, possessing the shadow of the noble knight, stood waiting at the far end of the terrace. He was staring at the sight of the underworld stretching to the other side of the palace. I didn't know what to say and could only stare at the wide expanse endlessly. I saw the tributaries where the river of hell flowed within, and beyond them, wandering souls looking in this direction. Do you see it? The deaths of countless people were there. Sadness was there too, and so were the joys and pains of life. All those cherished desires that failed to come to fruition floated down the river's surface. This is the underworld. While constellations were fulfilling their desires in the scenarios, souls sacrificed to those desires were swept into this place. The world of those who were discarded, wounded, and broken by the scenarios, that was the underworld. I shifted my gaze over to Hades. He understood this darkness and became the king of the underworld. While never turning away from the tides of sadness rushing in from the world of the living, while saving each and every one of those souls, while listening to other people's stories for thousands of years, nay, even tens of thousands of years. At that moment, I thought for some reason, I could say the words I held back for the longest time. Father. Hades didn't reply. Maybe that word was just as foreign to him as it was for me. Still, he did reply, command the army. I looked at him again, utterly stunned now. And in the next moment, I heard the sound akin to the darkness roaring out. Souls in the near vicinity of the fortress walls were rushing towards the palace. Some of them carried determined expressions, while others carried heroically grim ones, and in front of them all stood the three judges. It was an enormous army, crashing in like a tidal wave. I had a hard time trying to hide my heart palpitating from the powerful aura of the great army that had not been seen before. For the glory of Underworld, the first judge shouted out. For the glory of the Underworld's prince. The second judge prostrated and looked at me. And as the third judge powerfully raised his spear towards the heavens, every soul here began roaring out in a single voice. For the eternity of all scenarios and their epilogue. As the roar continued on, the king of the underworld addressed me. Now go. Hades didn't even look at me when he said that. Even though he didn't, he was still looking at me. He had always been looking at me. Underworld is your ally from this moment on. Chapter 390, Great War of Saints and Demons 5. Duung, duungs, duung. The beating war drums resounded out from the other side of the gate. Han Suyong stood before the gate leading to the 119th regional conflict and looked behind her. Hey, you ready? This battle would be fought alongside Yu Yonghyuk. Their personalities were a bad match, but there was no other ally that instilled as much confidence as he did. Unfortunately, that Yu Yonghyuk was displaying a slightly strange behavior right now. Yu Yonghyuk. Rather than getting ready to enter the 119th gate, he was staring at the newly generated the 123rd gate instead. Now beset with a certain ominous foreboding, she was about to call out his name, but then his figure suddenly vanished. And then a strong repulsive force pushed her back forward. You're entering the 119th gate. Data. The last thing she saw was Yu Yonghyuk's hard, emotionless expression. You go there alone. I've another battlefield to get to. Hey you can't make that decide. Even before Han Suyong could shout something in reply to that sudden declaration, the surrounding space tore and swirled about to reveal a brand new battlefield. God damn it. Incarnation, Han Suyong, has entered the 119th regional conflict. Incarnation Han Suyong's affiliated camp is evil. She had already crossed the gate and couldn't go back now. She simply had to end this battle first if she wanted to return. Many constellations have taken notice of you. The only person on the wide-open camp of evil was just Han Suyong alone. On the other hand, frightful gazes from constellations belonging to the opposing camp were raining down on her one after the other. Constellation, Master of the Ark, is looking at you. Constellation, Guardian of Youth and Travel, is looking at you. Constellation, Morning Star Goddess, is looking at you. Constellation, the one who faces God, is looking at you. Constellation, Demon-like Judge of Fire, is looking at you. Han Suyong could only moan in horror as she confirmed the owners of those gazes. Even if she discounted the Master of the Ark, Noah, there were the Guardian of Youth and Travel, Archangel Raphael, and Goddess Vakarine of Guardian Trees. The one who faces God, Archangel Camel, and the demon-like Judge of Fire, Archangel Uriel twos. And then, the absolute riot of Valkyries standing behind with Neri, a gap between right behind them. Just looking at them alone made her nearly soil herself. She knew this was a trap, but still, to think that they created a battlefield with such a difference in the combat strengths. No, did this even qualify to be called a battlefield in the first place? I wonder if Kim Dokya will take care of my funeral properly. Oh, small evil. The moment Han Suyong heard the true voice of the Morning Star Goddess, she realized that this situation was not something to be made fun of. Many in the good camp wish to judge you. Han Suyong bit her lower lip, and just as she unfurled the bandages on her left hand, someone suddenly stepped up to her side. Someone has joined the evil camp. Someone entered such a disadvantageous battlefield. But who? I was originally going to sit back and spectate, but, you see, I have someone I must settle a score with. It was such a uniquely annoying voice that Han Soo-young immediately recognized who it belonged to. Asmodeus. It's been a while, incarnation of the Black Flame Dragon. It was right then. She recalled something Kim Dokya told her some time ago. Raphael and Asmodeus have a history together. If these two ever run into each other in the battlefield, try to use that to your advantage. Asmodeus's claws extended out, and even without Han Soo-young doing anything, the Demon King was already brimming full of desire to fight. Raphael, finally, it's time to pay you back for the previous battle. Leaving black afterimages behind, Asmodeus dashed forward. At the same time, two immense magical energies collided in midair. The Demon King might be an untrustworthy being in any other situation, but at least it was better than not having any as an ally right now. Kuwa. Han Soo-young avoided the explosion and rose up higher in the air. The view of the battlefield as seen from above stretched on forever. Even if Asmodeus was fighting against Raphael, there were still a lot of other constellations left. Screw it, Kim Dokya, and screw you too, Yu Yong-hyuk. In order to fight against that huge army, she had no choice but to unleash the hidden card she'd been saving up, until now. I, the master of the Black Flame, Han Soo-young, shall awake the dragon of the ancient seal. Oh, the constellation darker than darkness itself. Oh, the abyss deeper than the flowing night. She really didn't want to mutter out this chant even if she were to die, but with the situation being what it was, her lips began reciting it all by themselves. Her left arm reacted to her incantation and wiggled around. A dragon's roar could be heard coming from a distance somewhere. Here in this place, reveal yourself. Constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is getting ready for the advent of half-god. On the other hand, Yu Yong-hyuk had entered the 123rd gate all alone and began searching for someone in this battlefield covered in bushes fluttering in the wind. No mistaking it, it's her aura. The reason why he went against Kim Dokya's request and entered this particular gate was standing right before his eyes now. Yu Yong-hyuk, please become my ally. He had never forgotten the moment of the distant past when he heard those words for the first time. Her elegantly shaped nose and neatly arranged blonde hair, her eye with an ominous red glint circling within, as if to ridicule everything in this world. Anna Croft. She was just as he had remembered. You came, Yu Yong-hyuk. Incarnation, Yu Yong-hyuk, has entered the 123rd regional conflict. Incarnation, Yu Yong-hyuk's affiliated camp is good. The reason why he entered this battlefield was that he knew Anna Croft would be here, and the constellation who told him that was. Constellation, secretive plotter, forms a bizarre smile. Yu Yong-hyuk gritted his teeth and spoke. It's time to settle the score from the second regression turn. He quietly unsheathed Heavenly Dark Demon Sword, and its blade let out a sharp blackened cry. The moment of vengeance he had been waiting for a long time was here. He pointed his weapon at her as she remained composed in her spot. Take out your weapon. I have no desire to fight you. Then just die. He strode forward threateningly, yet she simply shook her head in reply. Are you really here to get even for the second turn? Your revenge is meaningless. You should know that I'm not the Anna Croft from the second turn. Is the you of yesterday not you anymore? What do you mean? You have inherited the memories and the desires of the second turn Anna Croft. You possess the exact same ideal and goal as her. Without a doubt, you are that Anna Croft. What determines one's existence is the fables in one's possession. I see that your views are the same whether it's the second turn or now. Even though she was staring at Yu Yong-hyuk's approaching sword, she still remained utterly defenseless. Seeing the signs of near resignation in her eyes, his expression hardened. Where are the Zarathustras? They are not here. Don't make me laugh. It's not possible that you'd come alone. If it was the Anna Croft you knew, then yes, she'd never do that. He took another large step forward, and her hair fluttered from his status. Her face, now revealed in full, displayed hints of wounds here and there. What caught his eyes the most was the scar surrounding the eye of the great demon. It was as if someone tried to deliberately cut it out. "What happened to you?" "Many things happened." She shoved his hand away and shot back at him. "It means that the lofty Anna Croft you knew has fallen a long time ago already." Just as her words came to an end, some things came rushing in from the other side of the battlefield. Constellations that had chosen evil were dashing across the field while fully unleashing their statuses. As if he knew something like this would happen, Yu Young-hyuk moved to take Anna Croft as a hostage. However, something felt off. A portion of constellations from the nebula, Asgard, have entered the applicable regional conflict. A portion of constellations from the nebula, Vedas, have entered the applicable regional conflict. A portion of constellations from the nebula, Papyrus, have entered the applicable regional conflict. Anna Croft was actually smiling as she stared at the sword pointing at her neck. "Please stop with your foolish actions, Yu Young-hyuk. We're on the same side after all." Incarnation, Anna Croft's affiliated camp, is good. "I thought Asgard was your nebula sponsor." "I understand your grudge, but can you please postpone it until the next time?" They might have been talking about two different things, but they still fully understood each other's situations. Such a thing was obvious, however. One was a regressor who understood the past better than anyone, while the other was a prophet who used to face off constantly against such a regressor. Yu Young-hyuk withdrew his sword and spoke, "A fitting end for you, prophet. And it seems that I'll have to share this end with you." Kugugagugu. The great army of Asgard marching forward while kicking up dust clouds finally came to a halt. Constellation, god of fairness and friendliness, finds this situation regrettable. Constellation, flames of Muspelheim, wishes to burn everything within this battlefield. Constellation, who likes to change genders, is looking at Incarnation, Yu Young-hyuk. As if to show their final bit of consideration, Selena Kim and Iris stood at the front of the marching army that had stopped advancing. Yu Young-hyuk could read many emotions written on their faces. Their final consideration then. Unfortunately, them stopping did mean that other constellations would do the same. "Dodge it." At the end of Anna Croft's words, both of their figures vanished from the spot, and then a massive explosion noise enveloped the entire battlefield. A stupendously large crater could be found caved in on the ground where they used to stand. Currents of lightning could be seen encroaching the skies above. Sounds similar to laughter coming from shady, dark constellations could be heard. Constellation, Black Wolf god of death, has chosen evil camp. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolt, has chosen evil camp. Anna Croft's complexion paled as she confirmed the modifiers of the constellations. The Black Wolf god of death was a powerful constellation from Papyrus, Anubis. As for the God King of Thunderbolt, oh my God, it's Indra. If Olympus had its 12 gods, then Nebula Vedas had its 8 Lokapalas as well, and one constellation lorded over those 8 Lokapalas as their king. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, has summoned the rain of thunderbolts. And that was precisely the God King of Thunderbolts, Indra. Many constellations are pleading for the case of unfairness at the God King of Thunderbolts' involvement. It was not difficult to see why some criticized this situation. Indra was not your average constellation who should be appearing in a measly little regional conflict. After all, it'd not be an exaggeration to call Indra the strongest existence in Vedas if one excluded its 3 main gods. Constellation, God King of Thunderbolts, is currently in advent of half-god state. On top of this, he was not in an incarnation body but half-god state as well. Anna Croft squeezed her mouth shut as she dodged the falling raindrops of lightning. Even if she was an excellent fighter, and no matter how powerful Yu Young-hyuk was, it was impossible to fight against that constellation right now. Meanwhile, Yu Young-hyuk asked her a question. "Why did you betray me?" "Is this the right time for such a conversation?" said Anna Croft, But then she saw his wordless gaze still locked onto her and replied with a sigh. That was the best available way forward at the time. I believed that I'd reach the end I thought of by doing that. So did you reach that end then? Anna Croft didn't reply this time. The ways of survival, or the records from the 1863rd turn, didn't explain which scenario Anna Croft of the second turn had managed to reach. So only she knew what her own result was. However, she spat out her words in an angry voice instead. Why do you ask when you know the answer already? The black wolf god of death made its move then. Anubis, the fable-grade constellation wearing a jet-black jackal mast and wielding a black spear, its weapon accurately stabbed past the falling rain of thunderbolts and took aim at Anna Croft's heart. But then, Kudujujuduk. I'll be the one to kill her, said Yu Young-hyuk in a low, heavy voice as he grabbed the spear with his bare hand. Constellation, Black Wolf God of Death, is stunned. An incredible status began emitting from Yu Young-hyuk's body, the status of a transcender. Now bathed in golden rays of light, magical energy boiled within his body. Anubis's spear began rocking powerfully as if it was having a seizure. Anubis loudly declared, as if it wanted to oppose this power. O the one who resists against death, I am the god of death, Anubis. I shall reap your life in this place. God of death, replied Yu Young-hyuk, you are no god of death. At the same time, blue light exploded from his right arm. Just as Anubis screamed and backed away, the heavenly dark demon sword in his hand roared out once more. I've already seen the real god of death. This was one of the techniques Yu Young-hyuk had been hiding until now.